Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, Minister Inkosi Buthelezi, and distinguished colleagues that have joined us here in the room and virtually. Thank you for making time to join us. Minister, it's always difficult to know how to address you because you say you prefer to be called Sheng Inkosi. So I'll call you like that, Minister, because you've given that permission. Thank you for making time to join us today in this webinar on enhancing organizational resilience through effective risk governance. My name is Bongani Maimele. I'm the Director for International Relations and Partnerships here at the National School of Government, and I'll be your Program Director for today. And I think it is a very timely and interesting topic that we'll be going through today. It's about organizational resilience and risk. How do we build resilient organizations? Organizations that can adapt to change, mitigate the risks, and also take risks, because I want to argue, is risk a bad thing to have? There's what we call a calculated risk. And I think maybe organizations that do not plan for risk can fail, but organizations that also take a risk can succeed. Hence, we can navigate the thin line between risk and innovation. Can we say that risk is part and parcel of innovation, and innovation is a calculated risk? So, one, organizations that do not take a risk cannot innovate, and organizations that do not foresee and plan for risk can fail. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome you, and I'd like to officially open the program by introducing the speakers that we have today. We have the CEO of IRMSA. We have the acting principal of the National School of Government. We have PCTA representative, Ms. Shivantini Nagalingam Potter. They thought maybe it's a tongue twister, but I got it right. And then we have the minister, of course. We have Dr. Hemi Leroux with us, Mtutuzeli Bua as well as Vanessa Tenwell, that will be part of this webinar. With that said, acting principal, I call upon you to come and give opening remarks to this webinar. Thank you. Please clap for the principal.
Minister, Honorable Nkosi Buthelezi, the executive from IMSA. We're also the representative from PCTA. We've got others online, like the Director Generals and our representatives. Fellow panelists that are here with us, Program Director, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. It is really with great pleasure and enthusiasm that I stand before you today to officially launch the collaboration between the National School of Government and the Institute of Risk Management, South Africa, IMSA. The partnership marks a significant milestone in our shared commitment to foster excellence in governance and risk management. By working together, we aim to enhance the skills, knowledge, and competencies of our public servants and professionals in the field, ensuring that they are better equipped to navigate the complexities of today's dynamic environment. This collaboration will facilitate innovative training programs, knowledge exchange, and best practice sharing, ultimately strengthening our capacity to serve the nation more effectively and efficiently. By integrating our expertise, resources, and innovative practices, we aim to equip our government officials with advanced risk management skills, fostering a culture of proactive decision-making and strategic resilience. Today, we're not only strengthening our institutions, but also laying a foundation for safer, more responsive and accountable government that meets the needs of our citizens today and into the future. Our public sector faces an era of unprecedented challenges, from economic fluctuation and technological advancement to social changes and global disruptions. In this context, effective risk management is no longer optional. It is fundamental aspects of good governance. Recognizing this, the partnership we are unveiling today aims to embed risk management principles deeply within the fabric of our institutions. Furthermore, this partnership aligns perfectly with our broader vision of professionalizing public service that is efficient, effective, responsive to the needs of our citizens. It reflects our recognition that investing in human capital is the most sustainable way to achieve long-term developmental goals. As we build capacity in risk management, we also foster a mindset of resilience, adaptability, and strategic foresight, qualities that are essential for navigating the complexities of modern governance. This partnership is a significant milestone in our journey towards strengthening the professionalization of our public sector. I want to take this opportunity to thank Institute of Risk Management South Africa for their expertise, dedication, and willingness to collaborate. This commitment to excellence and professionalism will undoubtedly enrich our training programs and elevate the standards of risk management across the public sector. I also extend my gratitude to all our partners and stakeholders who have supported this initiative. Your collective efforts demonstrate our shared resolve to create a government that is not only accountable, but also resilient and innovative. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank the Public Sector Education and Training Authority, PCETA, for their invaluable support and partnership in this initiative and other NSG programs. Their commitment to develop and enhance skills within the public service has been instrumental in bringing the collaboration between the National School of Government and IMSA to fruition. PCETA's dedication to fostering continuous professional development and aligning training with national priorities underscores the importance of this partnership in advancing the professionalization and resilience of our public sector. We're grateful for their leadership and collaboration, which exemplifies a shared vision of a capable, skilled, and future-ready government. Thank you, PCETA, for your unwavering support and for playing a pivotal role in strengthening our collective efforts towards building a better and more effective public service. I look forward to witnessing the positive impact of this collaboration with our institutions, our public servants, and most importantly, the people that we serve. Thank you for your commitment, your passion, and your belief in the power of professional excellence to transform our public sector and our nation. I'm confident this alliance will not only benefit our institutions, but also contribute to building resilient, transparent, and accountable governance across South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Principal, for the excellent remarks. There's something that we have done to the program there that you may not have seen. It's part of a calculated risk that I took by myself. Very, very calculated. So you will see there on point number 2, where it highlights my name. That's where the acting principal came in, and she was giving the remarks as part of the launch of these partnerships. With that said, I would like to call on the CEO of IRMSA, Ms. Yvonne Tibi, to also give remarks as part of the launch of this wonderful partnership about risk management in the public sector. CEO. Another round of applause, please.
Program Director, maybe before I even commence with my remarks, my sincerest apologies extended to everyone here, both in person and online. I might, intermittently do a side cough. I've been under the weather, but risk has been fully mitigated, I promise, Program Director, because it has been now weeks. As you know, the virus will stay with you for about between 3 to 7 days. Beyond that, it's merely just issues of addressing symptoms. The Honorable Minister of Public Service and Administration, distinguished representatives of the National School of Government, the acting principal, and the team, leadership of Public Service, Sector Education and Training Authority, PSETA, senior officials from different spheres of government, starting with national, provincial, and local government, both here and online, and from different respective jurisdictions and regions. I'm aware that there's people who are joining us from outside of South Africa. They would have met me in Lesotho yesterday and said to me, we are attending your event of tomorrow with NSG and PSETA. So I'm fully excited, and I would like to recognize those people as well. Allow me to begin by expressing my sincerest appreciation, firstly, to the Honorable Minister for your unwavering commitment to building a capable, ethical, professional public service. So your leadership in advancing professionalization agenda provides the policy direction within which initiatives such as this one becomes not only possible, but it has now become an imperative. To the National School of Government, thank you for your partnership, Pindi, and the team, for serving as a backbone of this capability development within the public sector. Your national footprint ensures that this program is not just a standalone intervention, but part of a broader institutional reform journey. To PSETA, we acknowledge your strategic investment in strengthening risk governance and its skill sets across different spectrums of government. And we welcome your prioritization around this capability development. You're directly contributing to what we believe to be the most important set of competency development in our times, given the risk landscape that we have been confronted with. From public media, national television, the commissions that we've been following, it's clear that at the front and center of issues that we need to uproot lies issues of risk management. And we really need to get to the underpinning rationalization of what it is that we're addressing on surface. So thank you for coming through to partner with us in advancing that course. Now, maybe just to set context, South Africa does not lack. We don't lack governance frameworks. We don't lack policies. We don't lack guidelines. We've got all of those from legislation. We've got structures such as oversight committees, your audit committees, risk management committees. We've got functional risk management units, audit units, and so on and so forth. And yet, it's unfortunate that there is a persistence of negative audit outcomes, adverse audit outcomes coming through from the AG as an independent body that brings about that level of assurance, external level of assurance as to whether are we mitigating risk to the level that is required for us to keep this government afloat, to advance it and drive it with foresight, having the future of the people of this country in mind and not as a means to an end. We still have projects that are delayed. We've got budgets that overrun, not fully mitigated against risks, or at least some buffers or hedging that we could apply to budgets to ensure that we cover ourselves around any eventuality or shocks that we are likely to experience. It could be from economic side of things, from the global supply chain disruptions that we've seen. And unfortunately, we've always been on the receiving end of that. It started with COVID. Well, just to go back to a much more recent occasion, during COVID, we are one of the last countries to receive COVID-19 vaccination. And many other resources that we so need to keep this country going. So the issue is really not absence of structures. The issue is integration. The issue is ownership. The issue is professionalization. And that is why today I want to anchor our discussion on combined assurance as an effective risk governance system, not as a technical compliance as often experience it, but as a practical leadership system that strengthens accountability and public trust. How many of us, and I say this with due respect, the Honorable Minister, I've been a chief risk officer before of government, at local government level. I've worked for parastatals. So I'm a child of government. Government has built me to an extent that I'm now a CEO of private sector institutions. Excuse me. So I understand how good systems we've got, but I also understand how fragmented they can be and how, how much they can dilute our plans and integrations in terms of pulling everyone and pulling from all ends to ensure that we work together. We rely on each other. We are interdependent. I would need the finance department to support me with financial resources for me to execute on my plans as a risk management function. And so does all other departments, by the way. And they too, they need me to work together with them, ensuring that that budget is executed in line with what the highest levels of authority would have approved. We are cross-interdependent. So this combined assurance is very important because it kills that silo mentality. So I just want to say that I want us to look at it as something that is far more just than a compliance or a structured reform, particularly from second line of defense or second lines of assurance, depending from which eye do you view it. Combined assurance not only supports effectiveness and avoid duplication, ineffectiveness, so on and so forth. It helps us to identify risks owned by management. It embeds controls at operational level. It assists in terms of having accounting officers to receive a consolidated review of a reliable review of levels of risk exposures. And when it's done correctly, it should really improve audit outcomes. It should enhance accountability. It should strengthen our risk-based decision-making processes, reduce blind spots, so on and so forth. So really, it's a transformational vehicle moving from a siloed risk management approach to an integrated one. So public institutions operate in an environment where there's constraints across the board, from finances, our fiscal capabilities, to infrastructure, to procurement, to heightened scrutiny, because the public demands of us to account to them of how prudent we would have applied these limited resources upon which they trust on us to deliver basic services, essential services. So there is that heightened scrutiny. And with King 5 just being launched last year, October, it has honed into that public scrutiny. And it says, if you cannot defend your decisions publicly, then you probably should not decide on that privately. A very important underpinning to the current King 5. If you cannot defend your decisions publicly, do not decide on those privately. So as I come towards my end, in this environment, fragmented assurance is dangerous. Not pulling together as a united front, as teams within organizations of government that are working together, that does not help the public cause. It regresses it, it doesn't advance it. When risk sits in one silo, it advances that fragmentation that I'm talking about. Our strategy is not connected. Internal audit works supposedly basing that work on risk management. But how often do those two teams, risk and internal audit, work together in ensuring that this combined assurance comes to life, and fully so, in line with the appetite that would have been set out by accounting structures, accounting authorities? So I think I just wanted to say then, combined assurance aligns three essential layers that I would like to leave with you today. Management, firstly, who should own and manage risk. Oversight and specialization functions, who guide and monitor. That's where internal audit, well, maybe not internal audit, but risk management, compliance, performance comes in. Independent assurance providers who provide objective assurance. And depending on which model have you applied, internal audit might come in there, or they might maybe take that to the outside internal auditors. If one layer of those three weakens, the system, the whole system becomes fragile. If they align, governance tightens and strengthens. So every one of us in here, whether we are here in person or online, we've got a role to play. One of the most persistent misconceptions in public sector is that risk management belongs to the risk management unit. It does not. Risk governance is a shared responsibility. Every single person who executes or is entrusted with some level of public mandate has a risk management responsibility to fulfill. Accounting officers set the tone and appetite. Senior managers integrate risk into planning and budgeting. Project managers manage implementation of those risks. Supply chain officials manage procurement risks. And so on goes the discipline. So combined assurance work not only when each role player understands their accountability and contribution, what contribution to make into building this full canvas. Professionalization begins with that clarity of responsibility, clearly articulating for each and every role player what it is that they need to do. So as I close, too often risk registers are updated to falsify quarterly audit requirements. But governance is not really about templates, colleagues. Governance is not about risk registers. It's about foresight. Governance is about asking what could prevent us from achieving our mandate. It's about having those robust discussions in boardroom tables, in corridor chats as we have coffee, over lunchtime, building that culture that is underpinned by behavior that is conformed within the frames of integrity and professionalism excellence. It's about asking what could delay service delivery. What emerging risks are we not yet discussing? As we see the ever-increasing change globally, we should be interested to know how is that going to impact on us? How is it likely to change the direction to which we want to go? And not be reactionary in addressing issues once we have been hit. Sometimes even having to deal with serious levels of devastation. It's only now recently that the AGOA agreement has been extended and many others. How is that going to affect us? Our import, our GDP drive. So EMSA's role then is to commit to public sector. It's our legislated responsibility under the National Qualifications Framework Act and under the accreditation that we would have received from SAQA to professionalize, to certify, to advance the risk management industry. So we will support the professionalization of risk management across public sector and underpinned by 4 pillars. When graduates leave universities with qualifications, those qualifications are underpinned by knowledge producers, universities. We, as professional bodies, bridge the gap between that and the industry expectation. We bring industry insights to ensure that the child that leaves university today will be fit for employment or workplace placements tomorrow. We understand what the industry requires because we are the industry. And that's what we'll be bringing, industry competencies and standards. Certification. Minister, 10% of our members, the institute members, we've got members across 18 countries in Africa, 27 in the world, but majority of our members are here. We are South African, from registration and headquarters. Only 10% of that footprint is certified. 10%. What that means is many people today who are entrusted with the responsibility of leading in risk management are uncertified. That is what it means. How do you then vouch that the people who are leading today are trusted advisors in risk management if they are not certified? But then a challenge from me to you, Minister, to the principal, is how do we support our incumbents occupying these positions to certify? Many of the people we engage with, they do not have the means to take up the certification from their pockets. We are all living under financial constraints. We need that level of support. In as much as we're going to invest in strategies and systems, structures within our institutions, let's equally invest in our people. There is no strategy that is going to work or drive success if it's not supported by competent, certified, skilled people. The discourse currently is, well, we see a scale that doesn't equate. It's imbalanced. Less and less budgets are put for learning and development of our people, which is a serious risk. So I think just in closing then, allow me once again to appreciate the National School of Government for being a strategic partner in this journey. Through your institutional reach, alignment with national reforms and priorities, this initiative becomes embedded in the broader capability framework of government. again to PCETA, or maybe before PCETA, we also acknowledge the Department of Public Service and Administration under the leadership of the Honorable Minister. The professionalization of public service is a structural reform, Minister. And risk governance sits right at the center of that. AMSA stands ready to support this agenda through standards, certification, continuous development, and thought leadership. This program has reached to over 1,000 people. I think our colleague Rufus or the principal would have the exact numbers. But that goes to show that true impact is desired, and that true impact will not be measured by attendance. It will be measured by application. If each participant here strengthens their understanding of risk ownership, if assurance functions align, if leadership demands integration, if combined assurance will cease to be a framework but become a living governance ecosystem, from fragmented assurance to integrated governance, from compliance to capability, from intention to professional excellence. Together we can build a capable, ethical, and professional public sector that is risk acute, that is applying excellent risk management practices, and has got foresight that is very much important in ensuring that the plans we do today and execute today are future fit. That will ensure that we extrapolate from the future data that will assist us to plan today for the future and not rely only on historic performance data. It does not help us. We are seated with lots of development right now in South Africa, where people developed using historic data, and such projects have now become ghost projects. For instance, the property sector, where this property is developed, not having thought as to where are people migrating in the next 5 to 10 years. They did not think of that. Where will people be in the next 5 to 10 years? That is future insight that we need to use in planning for the future, right? And that is risk management. That is the foresight that the risk office and the intelligence that the risk office is bringing to the table. So with that, I want to sincerely thank you, the Honorable Minister. Thank you for the opportunity, the acting principal, PCETA, our colleagues joining here in person, and those who are joining us online. Thank you so much. We look forward to that exciting journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO, for those remarks marking the launch of this partnership between the NSG and the Institute of Risk Management, South Africa. Without further delay, I would like to call on the representative of the PCETA, Ms. Shivantini Nangalingam Potter, to come and give her remarks. So we are still on time, colleagues. Do not worry, because when I was having tea outside with Shivantini, she mentioned that since she's a rep on behalf of someone, she's not going to use the whole 20 minutes. So that part of that 20 minutes has been used by the CEO. And she said she's not going to take a lot of time, but there's a secret between me and her how long she's going to take. But the program is on time. Do not worry. Thank you. Shivantini, over to you, CEO. Thank you. Round of applause, please.
Colleagues, good morning. And let me start by contextualizing this. I'm not a person of a lot of words. I believe I can say what we would like to say in a short period of time. So I won't keep you for the full 20 minutes. Honorable Minister of Public Service and Administration, Acting Principal of the National School of Government, CEO of IMSA, senior leaders joining us today from national, provincial, as well as local government, distinguished guests, colleagues, both here and in person and joining us online. Good morning. On behalf of the Public Service Sector Education and Training Authority, it really is a privilege to be here today and to be part of this very important launch event. I'm here to share with you a message of support on behalf of our board chairperson, Dr. Kenny Maimela, as well as our CEO, Ms. Buntle Lerumo, who's not able to be here today. In our view, when we heard about this program, when we worked with our partners, NSG and IMSA, we looked at this program not only as another training program, and we considered this launch not here just to talk about more training, but rather to, to look at how we build further steps towards making sure our professionalization of the state agenda is being taken forward. As PCTA, if you look at our vision, it's to be at the heart of developing a capable, innovative, and professional public sector workforce. And we do that to multiple avenues, not only skills development. So we believe this launch today and the program that's going to unfold is going to continue pumping into this heart of developing a skilled, capable, and innovative public sector, not just functionally, but also by building resilience, building ethics, and making sure we're building a public service cadre that is visionary. Colleagues, as PCTA, we're the training authority. We are mandated to drive skills intelligence. And we recognize that we are at a crossroad in South Africa. We have developmental aspirations, but that depends on our ability to bridge the gap between policy and practice. And we're here to ensure that every employee that's working within government is not just an employee, but a competent professional equipped to execute on their departmental mandate. The CEO of IMSA has put it quite nicely around how we look at risk management within the public service sector. And for too long, it's a back office, you're quite correct, tick box. Are we complying with the audit requirements? Burden. And changing that notion is what we're hoping to achieve through such programs. So again, you spoke about budget constraints. We are in an era where all departments, all entities are really challenged by fiscal pressures, infrastructure challenges, and importantly, a deepening trust deficit with the citizens that we serve. And therefore, positioning what risk governance can do must become our strategic shield. When we looked at this program, we note that it correctly recognizes that the effectiveness of our institutions cannot be separated from the quality of our leadership. And when I mention leadership, I do not mean SMS only. I'm talking about everyone equipped in the public service with a mandate to look after an area of responsibility. So if we are looking at this initiative that we're launching here today as a deliberate shift from compliance-driven and audit-focused tick box exercises, then we expect that this initiative should serve as a powerful enabler of sound decision-making. This, we believe as PCTA is going to help us go forward as a public service sector to make sure we can anticipate emerging risks, as you mentioned, and ensure that the service that is being delivered is efficient, ethical, and sustainable. Colleagues, I need to mention the systemic design of this program and why this is going to set apart other training initiatives and other initiatives that we've done collectively. By targeting all those individuals and functions that are involved in the combined assurance role, oversight, planning, finance, We trust that such a program is going to be able to ensure that new competencies translate immediately into institutional practice. Furthermore, we're starting quite ambitiously, and I trust that this ambition of targeting at least as a start, reaching 2,000 public service officials is a reflection of the intent of the seriousness, both from the NSG, IMSA, as well as PCETA around risk management practice within the public service sector. The collaboration further between IMSA and NSG reflects that there's need to partner with institutions that are taking the lead of capacity building within the public service sector and working collectively versus continuing with fragmented approaches to training. We trust and we believe that with training being aligned to the professional standards being set by IMSA, it moves us towards making sure that professionals participating in this training are going to be leaving with conforming to the highest professional standards. I'd like to also say a few words to the participants joining us online and those of you that may be participating but joining us here in the room today. We're looking at you to be the vanguard of this transformation we are talking about and that we seek to achieve within the public service sector. The tools that we expect to acquire from the sessions that we have today at this launch, and also the future program that is going to be implemented based on what we are launching here today, is not for individual personal growth alone. We trust that as participants, you take these tools and you use it in your everyday work as we use these kinds of practices to restore the public confidence in the state's ability to deliver. So participants, when you return to your institutions, do not return as the same official who left. Please return as the steward of resilience, an advocate for ethical conduct, and a champion for service delivery. Honorable Minister and colleagues, as I close, I'd like to again foreground skills development. It's the main mandate of us as a SETA. And I'd like to foreground that and say that skills development is not peripheral to the notion of a capable, ethical, and professional public service. It's foundational. Whilst we talk about aspects of expertise and competencies and capabilities, we need to always think about how do we build that. On behalf of PCETA Accounting Authority and CEO, I also wish to commend IMSA and NSG for their leadership in bringing this initiative to fruition. From the early discussions between IMSA and NSG as well as the PCETA, we'd like to acknowledge the interest, the support, and the passion and motivation to see this through to where we are able to launch this event today. And a special mention to the NSG acting principal as well as the NSG team. As PCETA, we do value the ongoing working relationship we have with the NSG rather, and the criticality of the role the NSG plays in building a capable, professional, and competent public service cannot be overstated. As PCETA, we reaffirm our commitment to supporting this program and the many future endeavors we will have together with the NSG and IMSA. And we look forward to contributing meaningfully to the realization of a capable and developmental state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, COO. We're moving right now to the keynote address by Inkosi E.M. Buthelezi, the Minister of Public Service and Administration. Minister, this is a very important topic that we're having today. And Minister, you are heading a very important portfolio, a portfolio that actually holds the functioning of the country, because without a capable and developmental public administration, most sectors of society would collapse. Education, security in all its forms, etc., depend on a capable public administration. And the NSG is an enabler minister to make sure that that public administration in the Ministry of Public Service and Administration is capacitated. So thank you for making time, and we're looking forward to your remarks.
Thank you very much. No, I didn't deserve it, so you were right not to clap. Thank you very much, Program Director, my brother, for the opportunity. And I want to respectfully greet the principal of the school, Tisha Ndlogo, the executives of the Institute of Risk Management South Africa, represented by my dear sister who just spoke here, directors general and other representatives from provinces and national governments, departments, executives and officials from higher education institutes, executives and officials from professional bodies, the executives of the Sector Education and Training Authority, risk management professionals and practitioners, fellow panelists, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I just want to greet you this morning for having joined this session. Whether you have joined, you have logged in from your government departments, state entity, or any professional practice, I greet you humbly so. And I do want to say that your presence this morning signals something very important, and that the conversation about risk governance and organizational resilience is one that cannot wait and one that cannot happen in silos. I'm very privileged to be part of this webinar organized by the two institutions that share a deep commitment to building a capable, ethical, and most importantly, a resilient South Africa, which is the National School of Government and the Institute of Risk Management South Africa. Colleagues, we not only seem to be entering a period of high uncertainty in South Africa, but we live and work daily in that environment of compounding uncertainty. Our country faces complex risk landscapes, from persistent fiscal pressures, infrastructure vulnerability, climate change, geopolitical shifts, and political uncertainty. We are also faced with risk of waning public trust, coupled with increased civil unrest and disobedience, cybersecurity or cyber threat, and the ongoing challenge of restoring public trust in our institutions. These are not abstract risks. They are present, interconnected, and demanding a response that goes far beyond compliance and annual risk registers. In addition to this risk, I do want to mention that there is a risk that is greater than all of them. This risk overshadows every framework we have built and every policy we have carefully developed. Colleagues, we may redefine policies and control audits, but if we ignore this risk, every safeguard we build remains fragile. That is a political risk. It must be confronted directly and without any diplomacy. It's been proven over time that systems do not fail just because of technical flaws, but they fail because of power, especially when captured by wrong hands, that has an ability to override and dismantle those systems from within. Political fluidity, opportunistic populism, and governance environment that enables unscrupulous leaders to be elevated into positions of authority constitute a systematic threat that no compliance manual can neutralize. Under such conditions, and once that culture takes hold, corruption becomes the operating system. Why so? Because this risk ends up detecting whether laws are enforced or selectively applied, whether regulators act independently or act as an extension of political power, and whether institutions serve the public or the powerful. The NSG has led the development of national frameworks towards the professionalization of public service and has, in partnership with the professional body, the Institute for Risk Management South Africa, conceptualized this webinar under the theme, quote unquote, enhancing organizational resilience through effective risk governance. A series of webinars and workshops is conceptualized to strengthen the capacity to anticipate, to manage, to adapt to risk that is crucial for sustainable success. Risk governance is more than just a compliance requirement. It's a strategic enabler that supports decision-making, accountability, and transparency. Effective risk governance serves as a backbone of organizational resilience, enabling us to anticipate, prepare for, respond to, and to recover from disruptions with agility and confidence. By enabling robust risk frameworks and fostering a culture of vigilance, organizations can identify potential threats early, mitigate their impact, and seize opportunities arising from uncertainty. In the public sector, resilience means ensuring continuity of essential services despite unforeseen challenges, from technological disruption to global crises. This requires collaboration across all levels, continuous training, and investing in systems that promote agility and responsiveness. I took the challenge to also consider assisting the risk managers by enabling them to be certified. The panelists of webinar, our participants online and in this room, should explore, therefore, how integrating comprehensive risk governance practice into our organizational culture could enhance our capacity to manage disruptions, safeguard resources, and sustain service delivery. Risk governance plays a vital role in the ongoing professionalization of public sector. It involves systematic identification, assessment, and management of risks that could impact public policies, services, and institutions. Effective risk governance ensures that public sector organizations act proactively rather than reactively. By integrating risk governance practices, public institutions can make informed decisions, allocating resources wisely and safeguarding public trust. Our public sector must embody agility and foresight, embracing risk as an opportunity for improvement rather than a threat to be avoided. By fostering collaboration across departments, leveraging technology for risk identification and monitoring, and upholding ethical standards, we build trust and ensure that our institutions remain robust, responsive, and responsive to the citizens. We should discuss the importance of proactive approach to risk governance, highlight key strategies for strengthening resilience, and emphasize our collective responsibility to foster a culture of continuous improvement and accountability. The NSG and MISA were working together on risk governance course, which is designed to equip professionals with the skills to identify, assess, and manage risk effectively across organizations. This course will explore the principles and frameworks behind risk governance, connecting strategy, decision-making, and accountability to create a resilient system. I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to PCETA for the role it played in the rollout of this governance training program. Your support and commitment are instrumental in equipping our public servants with the essential skills and knowledge to effectively manage risk, ensuring the success and sustainability of our initiatives. We look forward to a fruitful collaboration that will strengthen our risk management capabilities and contribute to our collective growth and success. I thank you, PCETA, for your valuable partnership. Through these training programs, participants will learn how to implement risk management processes, engage stakeholders, and ensure transparency while balancing opportunities and threats. The course combines theoretical insights with practical tools, including case studies and interactive exercises, making the experience engaging and applicable. Whether you work in finance, healthcare, technology, or any sector where uncertainty matters, This course will help you build robust governance structures that protect and enhance organizational value. Before I hand to the next speaker, colleagues, let me leave you with this thought. Resilience is sometimes misunderstood as the ability to resist change and to bounce back to where you were before disruptions. But the most resilient organizations are not those that return to the status quo, but those that adapt, those that learn, and those that emerge from adversity with greater clarity about who they are and what they exist for. That kind of resilience does not happen by accident. It's built through leadership, through governance, and through a culture where risk is treated not as someone else's problem, but as a shared organizational responsibility. And that is the work we are gathered here today to advance. The work we are doing as risk managers is a bulwark against corruption. You are the heroes of our constitution and the slaves of our constitutional values and principles. Our country depends on you. You understand completely what kind of situation we are getting ourselves out as a country. You also know exactly what led us into this risk we are facing just now. Risk that did not emerge by accident, but because of choices that were made, warnings that were ignored, and from accountability that was deferred. You are also fully aware of what is expected of you and how critical is the outcome of this engagement. Therefore, colleagues, this is not about compliance, but about whether our institutions still stand or continue to erode. There's no ground for excuses or hesitation. There we fail. The warning signs are already written on the wall about the dangers that lies ahead of us, and the consequences will be real, severe, and unavoidable. So I thank you very much for inviting me, and I wish you well in your engagements. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that those remarks. The client, if I can say the client, Rufus, said that we must skip the tea break. Is this that correct? Then we continue. We will have that later. So now we'll move towards the actual webinar, because that first part was the launch of this collaboration between the NSG and RMSA. While they're still preparing, colleagues, I would like to introduce our speakers, the three of them, and make a slight adjustment to the program. You will see that under each speaker, it says 5 minutes of question and answer. So we'll let all the three speakers give their inputs, then we'll have questions at the end. This is because some of their inputs may be related or may spark debate that you will need to engage all three of them to at the end of their presentations. Thank you, our panelists, for making time to join us. We have Dr. Henry Leroux, who is the ERM maverick with over 30 years of game-changing experience across numerous industries. Her PhD thesis isn't just academic fluff. It's a revolutionary ERM implementation model and assessment tool born from real-world expertise. And then the next speaker will be Professor Mtutuzeli Bauer. Mtutuzeli Bauer is a certified risk management professional with over 15 years of cross-sectoral experience in the design and implementation of integrated risk management systems. He is known for his clarity, depth, and practical wisdom. Mtutuzeli has become a sought-after trainer and advisor in South Africa's public and private sectors. Since 2013, he has served as a lead facilitator with the Institute of Risk Management South Africa, where he continues to deliver the flagship program, Public Sector Aligning Risk, Strategy, and Performance. And then our third speaker will be Vanessa Tulwell, who is a technical risk manager of IRMSA and owner of VT Risk Consulting Pty Ltd. She's a specialist. Specialist skills include advisory and implementation of all the risk management cycle, from analyzing risk management maturity and conducting gap analysis against risk fireworks and regulations, including the King report. So I would like to call on Dr. Hemi Leroux to come and give her input. Thank you. Hemi. Oh, it's online. Okay, I'm looking and I don't see her. Okay, thank you very much. Hemi, you may proceed.
Good morning, everybody. As all of you know, if you've ever spent one day in risk management, you will know that the key success factor for successful implementation is down at the top. And we couldn't ask for a better top to be here. We've got the minister, we've got the CEOs of all the relevant public entity bodies. So we are all set for successful risk implementation. So welcome and thank you very much for this opportunity to tell you more about combined assurance. Combined assurance, people, I'm telling you, it is the segue, it is the pathway to successful decision-making and improved decision-making in public entities. All of you spoke, the minister spoke about the global challenges that we are experiencing. He spoke about the local challenges. All the CEOs from the different bodies, PCETA, NSG, and IRMSA, spoke about people, you must pay attention. We're living in very, very uncertain times. In risk terms, we speak about VUCA, and we also speak about Barney. So VUCA means that we live in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous time in history. So yes, it's easy. Years ago when we started working, it was easy. You knew ball is coming, it's going to hit me against my head, and I'm going to most probably go to hospital. Today, it's not as easy because of globalization. We kept on saying the last few years, globalization, globalization, and the impact that it's going to have in terms of our hands and feet. How do we execute? But now we're also moving into Barney, which is brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible. So you stand around in your office, in the world, and you say to yourself, wow, I just cannot believe what just happened. How many moments do we have like that where we say, wow, I just can't believe that this is happening? So I'm telling you, one of the tools that you can use is combined assurance. Combined assurance gives you a segue where you can have proper conversations. But I like to take people a bit back to let's speak normal English. That is step number one. We've got wonderful best practice guidelines in ISO 31000, COSO, that tells you, listen, people, we have to integrate strategy, we have to integrate it with risk, and then boom, we integrate it with performance management. But it is actually much more simple than that. So risk is the probability and the magnitude of loss, disaster, and the blah, blah, blah. Or in normal English, we can just say to each other, hey, something bad can happen. The whole risk management process is actually something bad can happen or good. How are we going to fix it? Which of our resources that is so limited today are we going to use to actually fix this problem? The second thing we have to look at when you look at combined assurance is we've got laws and regulations. Every single industry sector, the public sector, you've got rules and regulations, and Tutuzeli will tell you more about that, setting the lay of the land with regards to regulations, laws, best practice guidelines. So the one thing in normal English is stick to the rules. Get to know the rules and then stick to the rules. The third thing is in terms of internal auditing, Internal auditing in normal English is just return to the rules. We did an audit. Now we determined that there's certain things that need to improve. And now we're taking you back to ground zero, if you will. We're saying to you, no, 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 no. You have to fix the following gaps in terms of your decision making, in terms of your conduct. The vision for NSG, I actually wrote it down while we were sitting here, is ethical and capable public sector in service of the people. And I want us to remember ethical, capable people in service of the people. So how, in terms of risk, in terms of compliance, in terms of internal auditing, are we planning to actually accomplish that? Ethical and capable people. Listen, we always have many words that we use. Many words that we use, and we don't literally realize from a hands and feet perspective what that means in our day-to-day lives. And I am so grateful for this collaboration between the minister, between the National School of Government, between IRMSA, public sector, so that we can start changing people's minds, changing the way they think, changing the way they act. Because I don't think, I know actually, because I've got years of experience in public sector, I know actually that lots of us, many of us, do not think of what we committing to. I was the chairperson of a few risk committees, and we started combined assurance, and in some of them successfully implemented combined assurance. So I know what the benefits are in terms of conversation, in terms of decision making, how it improves, how we actually get everybody on the same page. So that's the purpose of combined assurance. It is really integrating and aligning these assurance processes. What is the assurance process? It is your risk management process. It is your compliance process. It is your internal audit process. But I will go into that later in more detail. In an organization to maximize management of risk, opportunity, provide governance oversight. Yes, we're very serious about oversight, but what does it mean in real life? In real life, there are people that have to walk, that have to sign into teams, that have to do the following things to ensure that there is oversight. We've identified the risks, but now we're giving you assurance that we're actually managing it properly with the correct controls. One thing that public entities struggle with is fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I had it in one of the companies where I was the chairperson. Suddenly we're sitting there with R1 billion, and everybody's asking the question, how did we get to R1 billion? No, they were lags in authorizing the money to go out, etc., etc. If you implement combined assurance properly, you will most probably not sit with that. And going back to the definition, and optimize overall assurance to the audit and risk committee, considering the entity's risk appetite and tolerance. So what does combined assurance in a framework look like? Yvonne, the CEO from IRMSA, she alluded to it earlier. Yes, we've got oversight bodies. The audit and risk committee, and many organizations separately, the audit committee and the risk committee. We've got internal assurance providers, which would be internal audit. It might be consultants that you actually get in, or subject matter experts that come and provide assurance. They tell you, listen, in terms of internal controls, in terms of risk identification, you guys are okay. They're supposed to do a risk improvement report that shows you, in terms of your risk management program, these are the gaps, and this is how you have to close them. Then you've got external assurance providers, the regulator, external audit. They come and tell you, no, you've got certain inefficiencies in your operations or in the way that you manage your organization, etc., etc. And then obviously the piece that resists dance is the management. Listen, people, you walk in front. This is where the tacky hits the road, and this is where things start and where it's controlled and where it's managed. So as part of this entire framework, yes, all of us have certain responsibilities: management, internal assurance, external assurance, the oversight bodies. And where they meet, you get combined assurance. You've got different controls that you actually have to implement, risk and uncertainties on one hand, actions that you have to take. We must realize, all of us, that risk management, combined assurance is a decision-making tool that enables informed risk-based decisions. We loosely use the word informed risk-based decisions. The purpose of a combined assurance framework is to actually enable people to be informed, to have the right information so that you can make better decisions, to ensure the sustainability of your specific public entity, of your specific organization. People, if combined assurance works, it's the best thing you could have ever done. If it doesn't work, it's the worst thing you could have ever done. So please, please, please ask us. IMSA, we are available to explain it to you, to give you more insight so that you can plan and implement properly. So what does it look like in terms of a model? We've got first line of assurance, which is management. You own and manage the risk. That's where it starts. As soon, I always say to students, and I always say to people, as soon as you open the door to your organization, as soon as you open your laptop, you create risk or you manage risk for your organization. So you are in the front line. As soon as you see there's a risk, you implement certain controls to actually manage that risk. So what can go wrong and how am I going to fix it? Then you've got the second line of assurance. I always had an umbrella, but like most people in South Africa, I don't think you should open an umbrella in a house. So I'm not opening an umbrella. I'm just going to motion an umbrella. This line of assurance is centralized functions. Everybody that gives you a framework or a policy that everybody has to comply with, like risk, like finance, like HR, like compliance, all of them will give you a centralized policy that all of you have to comply with. That is the second line of assurance. Third line of assurance, surely there must be somebody walking around inside of your organization. We call them internal audit. They come and check. Do you have an effective risk management program? Where are the inefficiencies? How can you actually close those gaps? Fourth line of assurance, I see I called it internal control audit again. That's so funny. Sorry, people. Provide effective assurance to the board and the council. Where do things go wrong? I'm going to go into this for public entities, and then we can see how with combined assurance we can actually fix those problems. The fifth line is actually the governance body and the external assurance that ask the right questions. Listen, people, we are not too old to learn. There was a document that people wrote 20 years ago, 20 questions that directors should ask. In our language, we can say 20 questions that decision-making forums or members of the decision-making bodies should ask. Ask these questions from your risk owners, from your risk department, from your risk champions. If you are in a decision-making, your ultimate form of decision-making in your organization, you must ask the questions and they must be able to answer those questions. You will be held accountable for proper assurance in your organization. You should be held accountable, but arm yourself with knowledge. It is available. Arm yourself with the knowledge, know what your responsibility is. So this is a governance model, different lines, different people that have to execute in different capacities. So how do you integrate this? You start with your risk profile for your organization. So if people give you poorly worded risk register that tells you nothing, please send it back. Ask them for proper information. Tell them you need to make certain decisions. So they must interrogate the information and provide you with a well-founded risk profile in order to facilitate decision-making. That's why we do all of this. It is a decision-making tool. Map all the assurance providers to key risks, controls, and indicators. I speak to so many people who don't know what a control is. I think I went to work today, I closed the door, and that is a control. It's not a control unless you expect a flood or a gust of wind coming through. There must be a list of controls, a library of controls in your internal audit department. Match your risk controls to that and get everybody on the same page. Develop that combined assurance plan. Do you know, people, if you sit in a risk committee and you get that plan or that combined assurance map, and you can see the reds coming out saying that there is not good, there's poor control in that area, we know where to start the conversation. Conversation must start with the reds. With the greens and everything is happy-go-lucky and every line of assurance is actually working there. Start with the reds, find a solution. Our job is to find a solution and then mirror this all to the governance structures in your organization. Duplicate effort, mirror everything so that it makes sense. It's one story. Everybody's on the same page. They're telling one story. So in terms of integrating the assurance lines, really, people, this is the way to go. What is effective combined assurance? Risk-based prioritization aligned to your risk appetite. If you've got a big risk appetite, which means your willingness to take risk, people are going to be more risk aggressive. They're going to take more risk. Earlier, our program director said, innovation. To innovate, you must take risk. But if you've got a very, very low risk appetite, go and be innovative and run all over the show. No, people, then adhere to that risk appetite. And that's what you will see in your combined assurance map. Integrated sharing of information and methodology. So where can it go wrong? All of us in our careers have heard garbage in, garbage out, because it's true. If we don't, at the base level of a risk register, interrogate the information and ensure the correctness and the quality of that information, everything will be wrong. Combined assurance will be wrong, because which controls are you going to match with which risk that doesn't belong there? Those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. Independence and objectivity of assurance providers. Listen, combined assurance is not an excuse to play political games. It's not an excuse to fight with each other in a room. It is not. It is a forum where you sit and you find solutions to ensure the tomorrow for your organization. That is what combined assurance should be. So whoever can reach that objective, where people get to a place of integrated thinking, of cohesion, where they actually can have adult conversations, that person should manage this process. And then structured coordination and governance oversight. We know the structures. I taught a class yesterday and I asked them, so what do you think governance means? And then they mentioned, oh no, it's this. But why do you think it exists? It exists, people, so that we can have information about how decisions are made in your organization. Sorry, people, I was thinking Afrikaans, English, and if I knew Zulu, I would have thought in Zulu too. So how you make decisions in your organization, that's what governance in practice looks like. It's not just the structure of committees. There's a reason why it's segregated and why it allows for different conversations. So how does it benefit you? Eradication of assurance fatigue, less duplication of effort. Yvonne was alluding to it earlier, the CEO of IMSA, she was saying, how many audit departments really use the risk report or the risk register as an input to their audit planning? What does it take for you to actually use it? Trust. You must trust the information that you get is quality information. Then you will have less duplication of effort, less assurance fatigue. Secondly, assurance efforts are directed to the key risks. Don't go and have an assurance map that includes the top 50 risks in your organization. You don't have the resources to manage the top 50 risks in your organization. What are the key risks, the most important ones, the ones where you need to make decisions about controls that need to be implemented? And remember, we speak about controls, but it's actually allocation of resources. So how many people, how many decisions, how many this, how many that are you going to utilize for that specific risk? It's informed risk-based decision-making, a common view of risks and issues across the organization. I even suggested at one time, let's get not rid of the risk register, but let's discuss the combined assurance report at risk committees, because it gives us an indication of where the weaknesses in our organizations are. Maybe it is something that you guys can consider as well. Escalation of issues to governance committees is clear and transparent. People know where the information is going. Sometimes people are hesitant to share because they said, I've shared this information, but nobody is making any decisions regarding that. If you've got a formalized structure that shows you, we start here, we go there, and then we've got a feedback loop back to the other assurance activities. Assurance activities provide valuable, relevant data based on collaboration. Listen, people, we say collaboration is the language of the future. We say trust is the language of the future. Combined assurance gives you a forum where that is demonstrated. We've got a common language, consistent approach. Our thing in risk management, we say we are there for value creation and protection. My challenge to you is go and sit and think. Value do you think you create and protect on behalf of your organization? And let's start thinking about what can go wrong in that environment. What do I have to fix in that environment? What do I have to report to the Combined Assurance Forum? Improve efficiencies due to sharing of lessons learned, less duplication of effort. You save costs because you have resource optimization. The same session I sat in yesterday, I once again heard, we've got budget constraints and we've got capacity constraints. So I said, let's do a walkabout. I will identify every person who is not busy. And I'll challenge you to build that agility into your resource utilization. If you're not busy, you've got 5 hours to spend on something else. And maybe that will also improve the way that public sector works. Not only public sector, any organization. Improve controls and there's fewer surprises. Why does it result in fewer surprises? Because people are informed. Everybody's on the same page. If you can get everybody on the same page, you've won. You've won for your industry, you've won for your organization, and you have literally improved quality of decision-making, quality of resource allocation. So I did a bit of research on what are the general challenges public sector struggle with. And really, when you go into public sector and you listen to what people give you as feedback, this comes from the Auditor General reports, but if you listen, we see all of this, capacity constraints and skill shortages, a silo mentality and fragmented processes, weak internal controls and poor record keeping, complex compliance requirements and bureaucracy. So we must take a step back, it sounds to me, and say, who is sitting around? Who is not collaborating? Where can we improve the internal controls and keep better records? Why do we have so much bureaucracy? Yes, because we have to go through this. We have to do this. Combined assurance can streamline all of this for you. Specific challenges, there's misalignment, and this is now really on a nuts and bolts level. Misalignment between the risk registers, performance plans, and assurance plans. So when I walk into a risk committee, people, I just say to them, let's do a cleanup. Does this risk belong to you? Does it belong to you? We're going to have constructive conversations where we focus on decision-making going forward. Inconsistent risk maturity across the institution. So Department A is on level 1 risk maturity, Department B on level 5, etc., etc. So intentional efforts to actually align that. Limited integration of auditor general, internal audit, and management assurance. Get people around the table. Have them thrash out common problems and find solutions. That is the call to action today. Find solutions. Nobody will arrive on your doorstep and tell you that your strategic or annual performance plan, the strategic outcomes will change. They will not tell you that. They will tell you, make a plan. Make a plan. So combined assurance is a place where you can make a plan. Technology and data limitations. Make a list. I will say to people, make a list. Decide, this is what I'm struggling with, and make a plan. So how do you overcome the challenges? I think I spoke about it. Strengthen governance and accountability, build risk and assurance capacity, integrate planning across strategy, risk and insurance, and improve remediation, tracking, and follow-up. Really, it's a cyclical thing. Start at the start, go through your motions, and then lessons learned. Learn from each other. Not everybody in life is out to get you. And Vanessa will laugh because I'm the most paranoid person she knows. So if I can tell you people, not everybody's out to get you, believe you me. There's hope. So impact on decision making. Why do we make better decisions with combined assurance? We've got a consolidated view of risk and all the assurance efforts. Whether you're part of the management team, whether you're part of the audit team, internal audit, whether you're part of the umbrella, remember, the umbrella functionality, whether you're part of the external assurance functions, you've got one view. One view. It enables timely corrective and preventative action. It must result in action, people. How many times do we sit in these forums? Do we sit in the risk committee meetings? Everything is static. But then when we try to explain why we're not reaching our objectives, then suddenly we say we live in a VUCA and a Barney world. Is that reflected in your risk reporting? Is that reflected in your other assurance reporting? It must be reflected there. Otherwise, you're not looking forward. You're not looking back. You might be looking back, but you're not looking at today, and you're certainly not looking at the future. The future is more chaotic. So how are we going to work that into the way that the reporting functions that we've got, or the reporting that we've got, in the way that we make decisions? I know many public entities, we only work to actually get rid of those audit findings, isn't it? 90% of our time we spend on, I have to talk to the internal audit function. I also have to talk to the auditor general because I don't think this is there are really grounds for an audit finding. But no, people. Let's start thinking about better decision-making in general. How can we utilize our resources properly? And how can we be proactive in terms of our risk culture? Proactive, foresee, be future fit, foresee the future and make the right decisions. So hopefully after my session today and then after Mtutuzeli's session and Vanessa's session, you'll realize we can create an ethical and capable public sector in service of the people. Remember who you work for. We work for the members of, the members, listen to me. we work for our fellow South Africans. How can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I make better decisions? It starts with you, and then we'll have a better community and a better country. So thank you very much people. Nyabonga. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to share this with you. And I really want to hand over to Mtutuzeli, who will explain the regulatory and the legal landscape for risk management. Enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Leroux, on the fundamentals of combine assurance through the lens of risk management. A few points that you touched on, I'm going to touch on all of that because I think those will come during question and answer session. But one thing that took my attention, okay, on the complex compliance requirements. I think that is something that actually confronts the public sector. Most accounting officers have to deal with the complex compliance requirements, and sometimes that takes time from service delivery. And then also you touched on the benefits, which it moves institutions beyond compliance to integrated thinking, and then also it strengthens governance and accountability. I would like to call on the next speaker, Professor Bua, on the regulatory frameworks, standards, and compliance landscape for risk management in the public sector. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you. Professor Bua, we cannot see you, and please unmute so that the audience can hear you. Thank you. Prof. Bua, we cannot see you, but we see your name on the screen. Please unmute and then also project your presentation so that we can go ahead. If you have muted, please unmute. We're not hearing anything from our side. Can you hear me? Tech support.
Prof. Bua? Can you hear? Okay. All right. I think in the essence of time, while we get Prof. Bua, we will continue with our next speaker, Vanessa.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure what is happening. Good morning, everybody. And I will just quickly share. It's okay, it should be up. Right, just to reiterate what my CE and Dr. Harry Leroux have said already, thank you very much for the opportunity today. And I'm going to take you through, it unfortunately does preempt what Mtutuzile was going to be speaking about. He was going to talk through the governance side, but I'm going to now take you through some very practical sort of implementation or development and implementation of combined assurance. So really just starting off with what are some of the sort of key elements. Harry has spoken about why we need combined assurance and a lot of the sort of success factors and really the importance of integrating it into our organizations. But I really want to, yeah, some of it will reiterate what she said, but I really do want to just talk to these key elements. So really starting with understanding who our assurance providers are and mapping them to our strategic risks. And Harry referred to not doing this for 50 risks that we might have. We need to look at it in terms of those top operational risks, potentially risks that we have a significant control reliance, or where we do also have controls that are potentially not as effective, that we need to provide assurance and also look for areas of improvement. That leads us to having a combined assurance plan and understanding our where the assurance coverage is that we need, what is the depth of that assurance coverage, and starting to look at each key risk and understanding which what level of depth that we need to address each risk in. And again, focusing on a prioritized basis, that we have this looking at our top risks first, without spending a lot of time on our lower level risks, to really make sure that we've got that cost benefit balance. Integrated reporting then, so forming a significant part of that to the audit committee and our risk management committee on what the potential gaps could be, what are the assurance outcomes, where do we have areas of improvement, and making sure that we do continually move forward in our control environment. And a lot of the previous speakers have already alluded to the importance of that control environment and not being just a paper-based risk management program. Having different assurance providers, we have to move from, Harry spoke to us about the different lines of assurance, and making sure that we are including those risk owners that are at the coalface, working with the controls themselves, owning those controls and the risks, then risk management, and then working towards internal audit, external audit, the Auditor General, various other assurance providers there. And then needing to manage challenges, and we'll touch on these later as well. So what are the different silos we may be experiencing? We see risk management and internal audit don't always talk to each other. Where is there duplication and that assurance fatigue that is such a common problem? Where there's some of the gaps in the coverage of our risks. So as much as we have the duplication, we can also have the those gaps where we're not actually providing assurance on our on certain key controls. And then also having weak visibility at audit committee level. And what's very important there is that it comes down to our reporting about the trusting the right information that we have that is being submitted to the audit committee or audit and risk committee, and that we are able to make decisions based on that information we are receiving. And a lot of combined assurance is very much based on trust, that we are trusting each other's information across the different assurance lines. So very detailed slide, but I'll talk us through it, and really looking at the process to now establish combined assurance in our organizations. So we really need to start with understanding what those priorities are. What is the risk priorities that we have? We always talk traditionally in internal audit about our risk-based assurance plan, and really making sure that our risk information is feeding that. And it's absolutely critical to have a strong foundation of risk management that can feed that risk-based, understanding what those risk-based priorities are. So starting with understanding our strategic objectives, and we've also alluded to that risk management needs to be real and adding value to us. And if we're not linking it to our strategic objectives, we're going to be misaligned, and we're not going to be realizing that proactive value. So understanding our strategic objectives, especially understanding our risk appetite and tolerance levels, that really give us that decision-making platform of where do we sit with our risks, what impacts are going to be too much for us to handle, whereas what risks are we able to take? And the minister spoke about that risk management needs to have, or allows us to innovate, but we need to be working within those appetite and tolerance levels that we've established. And then also prioritizing our risks based on their impact likelihood, our control effectiveness, which gives us a very good indicator of where our assurance activities need to be projected. So that's establishing that the risk priorities, understanding what our priority risks are, what our controls are as they relate to that, and really where our organization is moving in terms of managing our risks. So once we've understood the risks, we then need to map our assurance activities that are currently in place. So this helps us to determine the as is, and then we can move on to what do we need to do? What do we need to improve? Where are there gaps, and where is there duplication as well? So what have we currently got in place? We see many organizations that don't have the first line of the sort of management and risk owners and control owners. Very strong, usually in internal and external audit, but often our first and second lines of assurance need that level of improvement. So we identify those assurance activities and then start to look at what level of assurance is required by each of those assurance providers, and what level of rigor is needed with our assurance activities. So as we see there, highlighting risk areas with inefficient or insufficient and overlapping assurance, but where are there specific controls, specific risks where we have a very high reliance on our controls. So mapping those assurance activities, and I'll show you an example of an assurance map. And then we move into designing the actual combined assurance plan. So this is now our framework, frameworks need to be appropriate to your organization, and across the different organizations represented here today, they need to be appropriate to your level of complexity and to your risk management environment. So that assurance plan, and again, aligned to maturity as well. And the plan is really our guardrail. It mustn't force us into becoming a compliance-based process. It gives us the processes we need to follow, but we need to be working within the sort of value add of those processes. Higher risks will then receive more assurance than others, and we need to have that priority appropriate. We don't want to be fussing around on lower level risks where we've got valuable resources that need to be allocated to our priority risks. And then all our different assurance providers need to be included in that plan so that they know exactly what assurance activities, what risks they're looking at, what controls they're looking at, and that it really is streamlined. We, again, trusting each other with our use of information as well. Then we move on to actually implementing and coordinating our combined assurance. So this is now the action. And here we want to have this coordination between assurance providers. Now, we're all human. We have different egos. We have different ways of working. We have different cultural elements. We have different knowledge levels, different skill levels, but we really need to work together with combined assurance. We need to understand how we operate together, and really just look towards the goal of combined assurance and improving that control environment and the management of risks in our organizations. Very important there to have a common risk and control language, that we are on the same page, we're speaking the same language, we're using the same reporting formats as they apply to our different lines of assurance, and that the same methodologies. So this takes time, and this takes a lot of organizational culture, risk management culture, and a maturity in understanding combined assurance to start with, and then taking it to the next level of really integrating it into the organization. And again, it's easy to say what we need to do, but often this particular step can be a significant challenge. I was with a client, also public sector, a couple of weeks ago, and they keep talking about combined assurance. But then once we actually delved a bit deeper into, so how are we working together, there wasn't any working together that was actually happening. The certain parties were having to provide 4 different reports to different audiences that all said the same thing, and to different assurance providers. And that's really where we need to get into the streamlined approach of being able to be able to save us a lot of time, save that assurance fatigue, the reporting fatigue as well. And then the final step is the actual reporting and use and sharing of information, various dashboards, our findings, control weaknesses, outstanding actions. And what's very important here is not having a fear of raising control weaknesses. If we've identified them and we're aware of them, we need to raise them so that we can actually manage them. We then obviously need to integrate with the AG, various other external assurance findings, and then also having a challenge that we can challenge the sufficiency of controls where there are potential issues. And if there are instances where we might be overrating our controls and having an a sort of elevated view of those controls. So that's really the process in a nutshell. In some organizations, you can take a year to complete this process. And then there obviously is the ongoing implementation, coordination, reporting, and so on. And there's a lot of information out there that can assist you and guide you in that process as well as our new partnership with NSG. So this is just a very simplistic plan of what a combined assurance or simplistic view of a combined assurance plan. And really you would have your actual level that or assurance line. So level 1 or line 1 being your being management, being the risk owners, being the control owners. Level 2 being your risk management and specialist service providers, assurance providers, and then level 3, 4, and 5, etc., being internal audit, external audit, your governing body. And then again, as Harami said earlier, there's different lines of assurance will work for different organizations. So essentially here, for your risk, you will have who the specific assurance providers are. What are the different controls that they need to, what they need to address and provide assurance on? What is the specific activity? Is it an observation? Is it a simulated scenario test? Is it walking through a system or a desktop view of a specific process? So what is the actual assurance activity? And we really try and encourage people to be creative in determining those assurance activities and how we can really test and assess our controls. It's not just paper-based. We do need to have an element of simulated test or observation. Then we look at what the status is. Are there gaps? What are recommendations for improvement? And obviously we can expand on this plan significantly. And this then becomes your reporting tool and the sort of repository for information as well. Different tools that you have to support. We have various risk management systems that include assurance activities, but we don't, a software system is not always a silver bullet, which is very important to note, and that we can also do it fairly manually on Microsoft Word or Excel, or just having different registers that are capturing our risks, our controls, responsible owners, and are progressing and allowing us to have this continual improvement. Rather have the good behavior within combined assurance than having a fancy software system that everyone's too afraid to use, or it's too complicated and it's not actually enabling the process. Definitely having different matrices and registers and having plans for our assurance, and again making sure that they are appropriate to our organization. Then Treasury also has different tools for us to use that then, as it says, integrates legislation, compliance, risk management principles. And there's also continual review within National Treasury of how can we improve the tools that are being given to public sector for assisting with combined assurance and with risk management. So in practice, and again, giving you a very practical and as Harami said, using common language. We get very tied up in the jargon. Let's speak in plain English, plain Afrikaans, plain Sotho, but the questions to ask within combined assurance: are our significant risks being managed within our appetite? Is it too much for us to handle? Are these risks hurting us? Are they keeping us awake at night? Is our assurance right for the significance of each risk? Do we have huge risks that we're concerned about that don't have enough assurance activity, and we're not really too sure about the controls that we are trusting to manage our risks? And then, do our findings drive change? Are we having accountability? Are we allocating resources? Is it assisting us to achieve our objectives? And then tracking our actions, making sure that we have action plans and ownership. We have a combined assurance forum or networks where we can work with our control owners and our different assurance providers. Tracking progress with, if it's dashboards and other reports, again, making sure they are appropriate to what the information that we are trying to achieve and the level of complexity and maturity of our organization. And then making sure that our actions are actually reducing our risk exposure. Remembering that a new action or an improved control will all assist with reducing our risk rating and our risk profile, that improvement in control effectiveness is so important. So really then bringing it to life. We need to make sure that we've got that buy-in and tone from the top. We've spoken about that today. Articulating the value up front and making sure that we get that buy-in, that we understand why we are doing combined assurance. It's not just because legislation tells us to. We need to anticipate that value to our organization. Then very importantly is start small. It's not about having the Rolls Royce up front. Depends on your risk maturity. It depends on your existing assurance maturity. And then also making sure that we focus just on those strategic risks initially, and not jumping right into a whole register of 50 risks. Let's start at the top and work our way down. Having a standardized terminology and processes and ratings is incredibly important so that we are speaking the same language. Understanding the different levels of maturity of different parties. As I said, internal audit, external audit, AG, all fairly mature in assurance activities. And we might find that our first and second lines of assurance are not necessarily as mature. Building awareness and building that maturity is absolutely key. Then formalizing our combined assurance matrix and plans so that we have that guardrail, we have that structure to guide us. But again, making sure we're not getting too compliance driven and just ticking boxes. Then integrating the outputs into our decision making. That's why we're doing this. We want to make more informed decisions. We want to make sure that we are adding value to our organizations and we're improving that control environment, and linking it to our strategic planning is very key. And then continual improvement, as we've spoken about as well, is continually reviewing and refining the model and making sure it's adding value, and that it's also keeping up to changes that are in the external environment, changes within our organizations, and then looking at as maturity improves as well. But then there are challenges. So it's often a lot of trial and error in terms of the methodologies and the structures and process we've put in place. We don't necessarily have a one-size-fits-all approach. Even across our organizations, different departments, different divisions might have slightly different approaches to their assurance activities. But then also what works well for one department is not going to necessarily work well for another. So that's where the art of risk management and combined assurance comes in, that we really have to be very customized and tailored to our own organization. Sometimes we embark on combined assurance without knowing what the end product looks like. So we know we have to build a map, we have to map our assurance activities to our risks, but we don't necessarily have a view of what we need to, what the end product's going to look like. We struggle to integrate sometimes. We have our different views, we have our different activities, we have our different processes, and then also not understanding the concept of combined assurance. So very important to start off with that awareness building, which all encourages the buy-in as well, and understanding the meaning of assurance, that it's not an audit that needs to make everybody absolutely terrified of what the findings are going to be. We are providing assurance to improve our control environment. And the other challenge there is often there's a low level of risk management maturity. So we're now creating this base of combined assurance on a low level of risk maturity, so that the risks, we don't necessarily trust the quality of our risks, of our reporting information, so having that base of good risk management is very, very important. And then just to reiterate those critical success factors, and this repeats, or not repeats, let's say reiterates what we've spoken about. Very important having that tone from the top. Leadership is absolutely critical. If we don't have management and leadership buy-in, it's visible that, oh, there's not a commitment to combined assurance. So why should I, as a middle manager, actually commit to it as well? We need to make sure we've got a clear definition of combined assurance and what we are assuring, and that's where our mapping comes in. We have that foundation of good risk management. We have very good communication and collaboration, and trust. Absolutely critical to have that level of trust of our information. Allocating and understanding our accountabilities, and that we have the capacity to execute those responsibilities as well. That we have the capacity, we have the skills, and we have the experience across those different lines of assurance. Making sure our mapping is credible, that we trust the risks. We have worked out the different assurance activities according to the different assurance providers, and making sure that we are eliminating any duplication and those gaps, and really just managing that assurance fatigue as well. Establishing control self-assessments is very important as well, and that's very much a first-line function where we are, as the control owners, we are actually looking at those controls in their sort of day-to-day operation. Having the right culture of the organization, and that we've got an approach that matches that. If we are a very risk-averse organization, we're going to want to have a very high reliance on our controls, but not stifle our organization either. If we are a very innovative, risk-taking organization, obviously we need to have the controls to support that as well. And then, as we've mentioned as well, is that common repository, common language, and the central repository for understanding that, having that information and that we're all on the same page. And then looking at achieving the desired culture. This is where we can often struggle. We have our different sort of leadership cultures. If we do have areas of strong leadership, we do have buy-in to risk management culture. What is our accountability for our actions? Do we have a good management style, and that it's participative, it's collaborative, and it's encouraging discussion? Do we have risk-aware behaviors, and is it integrated with our decision-making? And do we have open and honest discussions about risk, or are we trying to sweep them under the carpet? Are we trying to elevate risks to if it's in a budget approval cycle? Are we having these honest discussions, and that we are confident that we are raising the risks that are relevant to our organization? And then creating that awareness as well at all levels in the organization. It's not just at assurance providers and sort of key lines or the risk management function. It's all employees. It really does need to be at all levels in the organization. So originally, when I was third, I thought I would just wrap up. So I am going to still just include this. That really just to consolidate what Harmy and myself have covered, and what Mthutuzile is going to move on to, is combined assurance is really about that eradication of assurance fatigue that we've mentioned a lot. Not wasting resources on unnecessary duplication, and feeling like we are just jumping from audit to audit to audit. Making sure we're directing our efforts to the risks that matter most and not messing around at the lower levels. Freeing up our resources to other more productive tasks. Having that common view of risks and issues across the organization. Because of our mapping process, we understand our risks, we understand our controls, and we have that common view. Then escalation and reporting to our committees is insightful, it's value adding, we trust the information we're receiving, and it's helping with our decision making. We're based on collaboration and not silos, which is very clear and something that's applicable to many different initiatives in our organizations. We've spoken about that common language and consistency, sharing of lessons learned, having these forums, discussing what's working well, what's not. The cost savings that are direct, very direct impact of combined, and making sure that we have this commitment to enhancing our control environment. It's a legal requirement according to the PFMA, but we also need to make sure that we are committing to the benefits of having that control environment. And then also fewer unpleasant surprises. We understand our vulnerabilities and our weaknesses in our organizations, but we've built a robust control environment that hopefully we are not taken by surprise when some of the significant loss events happen. And then I just want to close with a quote that it's not about knowing, we must apply, and we need to be willing, but we also need to actually do and take action. So that is me. So I will hand back to, and I see, was my presentation sharing because, or have you already unshared? Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you. Back to you, Program Director. And I look forward to questions later.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, for that wonderful presentation. What I gather in summary, there's this famous quote we say, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I think that is the key message that you were saying in your presentation, that keep it simple, use simple language, let it be tailor-made. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, etc. And I think those are the key messages that came out from your presentation. Not only that, I think the audience will engage you more on that. I would like to call on our next and last presenter, Professor Bua, to speak on regulatory frameworks, standards, and compliance landscape for risk management in the public sector. Professor Bua, over to you. Do we have him online now, Kulsam? Professor Bua? Professor Bua, tech support says, please unmute so that we can hear you, or try to mute and unmute. Perhaps the audio will come through to us here at the NSG and to the colleagues that have joined online. Professor Bua, I think Kulsam, as part of tech support, I should hand over to you to guide him on what he should do.
Prof. Bua, can you hear me? It seems.
Hi, hear me, finally.
Oh, here you are. Okay. Thank you so much. I see you. Let me just. Okay, we can hear you. However, we can't see you, but I think that for now it's okay.
I can finally hear you now.
Yes, we can't see you. Can you enable your video?
I'm trying, just a sec.
No, it's okay. You know what? Yeah, perhaps we should just leave the video. We have you here. If we can maybe have one of your colleagues to share your presentation, and then you may continue. Thank
Yes,
you.
indeed.
I'm happy to present on your behalf, Mtutuzile. Well, I mean, share on your behalf.
Just hold on a sec, Vanessa. La window busy share. It's live. Okay. Share that screen. Good morning once again to everyone that is here with us today. It is a happy privilege for me to join you from the Kingdom of Eswatini. Can I just check if I'm sharing the slides? Vanessa, will help me? Okay, just hold on a sec. I'm trying. Just speaking it. Yeah.
I can share for you if needed.
Yes, ma'am. There I am. I'm now sharing. Can you see it?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, colleagues. The reason why we're having this exciting morning with all the technical challenges and me apologizing so profusely to everyone that is in the room, it is because I am in the Kingdom of Eswatini doing some restraining, and this we have featured as one of our topics for this morning. So I do trust that my explanation and apology has been accepted. The presentation that I'm doing is around regulatory frameworks and governance architecture. I think it's important for us in risk management to understand that we're not just operating in a vacuum. We are, running a process that is, steeped in governance and compliance. There are certain, requirements that we need to fulfill insofar as the practice of risk management. And part of it is the support that risk management provides to the combined assurance processes. I think whenever we have these engagements and presentations and trainings, there's always, internal audit in the room, external auditors in the room, and everyone is trying to figure out how do we engage in a way that is not broken or siloed. And so from the presentations that we've had, and it's unfortunate that I came in after Vanessa. Well, I was supposed to sit, between Vanessa and Dr. Ermi, to build this conversation. We need to start seeing a change in the way we approach, compliance and governance. So we want to move from governance to architecture, right? We move from concept to governance architecture. So combined assurance has been explained, I think, in detail, conceptually this morning, and it's always presented, as a concept. What we want to see happening now from a risk perspective is that our combined assurance must be based or driven by a clear understanding of risk. So the internal auditors have got an inherent need to align with our risk management processes, so that they can use that information in building the combined assurance. So governance architecture makes it, makes coordination unavoidable. One of the things that we're getting from legislation, and in South Africa, I think we've got a lot of legislation that helps us to govern, the way we practice financial management, risk management, and so forth. All of this is done to help us not to avoid responsibility and accountability insofar as these practices are concerned, including compliance. So from a legislative perspective, I think we have an architecture that is layered, that has got a layered accountability. In our instance as a country, we have the constitution that gives us the mandate. So many of our government organizations need to fulfill or pursue some elements of the mandate that is given within the constitution. Now, not only do we have the constitution setting the base or setting the tone insofar as legislation and compliance, requirements, but we also have key legislation that governs certain practices within government. Now, in our instance, we have the PFMA together with the MFMA, right? We've got the Public Finance Management Act, which speaks to all the other entities of government, and then the specially crafted Municipal Financial Management Act. These two acts, govern the practices that, when contravened, result in a breakdown of law, including fraud and corruption that we see. Not only that, but we have also supported these pieces of legislation with frameworks, including policies that come through from Treasury. And so Treasury also has got frameworks that they provide for the practice of some elements of risk management. I think in this week we saw the minister presenting the budget for the country, and with that, there's a lot of expectations from government, and so we need to start paying attention to the frameworks and the guidelines that are coming through. The King Code on Corporate Governance, I think there's a need for us to familiarize ourselves with this content and its application on government. I think we've seen a change in how the King Code on Governance, has engaged or interacted with government or public sector organizations from the beginning. We used to say, comply or explain. Right now, we talk about integrating risk management in our day-to-day practices. So when we look at the King Code that has come out right now, it advocates and supports for the integration of risk management in our organizations. Beyond that, every organization has to have a set of governance, principles and policies that sets it apart or that define what risk management will be, the practice of managing risk, and it extends beyond just the day-to-day functions, but it talks about the breaking down of silos and the coordinated activities that we do. So, as organizations developing policies, we should understand the far-reaching implications of these policies. We should not be creating more complexities than already exists. I think us existing in a VUCA environment, speaks volumes to how we should try and alleviate the pressure that we see on our systems, including government systems. So just zooming into these frameworks a little bit, starting with the PFMA, setting the legal accountability for the organizations, effective risk management systems, are then required by law. So many of us cannot avoid the development and implementation of risk management systems. However, it is in the design and the implementation that we need to pay attention to, because it's not just compliance that we need to do now. We need to facilitate a process of, yes, compliance, but mostly it has to be meaningful compliance. We don't want malicious compliance where people are just complying to the letter of the law for the sake of demonstrating progress, and yet there's no true transformation or true implementation of the same, such that service delivery is negatively impacted. So effective risk management is required. Management accountability is embedded, and so we need to start holding our people accountable. I think consequence management has been shown and demonstrated to be something that is missing in government. I think the commissions that we have in the country right now are a clear sign that there are some fundamental problems with the way we carry ourselves within our organizations and the way we hold our officers accountable for the decisions that they make. Now, when it comes to internal controls, I think personally some of the issues and concerns that I have is that the internal control framework, as developed and designed by National Treasury, is not necessarily followed through in the departments. Many see internal control as an extension of the finance unit, and it's not. Internal control is a unit supporting the overall organization in designing and implementing controls. Right? Yes, there may be a focus that is required for the finance unit because we're talking about financial management, but internal control in its truest form extends beyond just the finance unit. So one of the things that I advocate for is perhaps that unit leaning towards the risk management function, so that they can then facilitate the improvement of the controls that are captured in the risk registers. Controls or mitigation plans that indicate continuous activity should be considered to be a document of our internal controls and not necessarily mitigations. And so those are some of the things that come through from trying to apply compliance to the PFMA. Three things. It is legislated that we have effective risk management systems, so we need to work on maturity of those systems. Secondly, management has to be held accountable, insofar as embedding risk management, in their day-to-day functions. And thirdly, we should focus on the internal controls. Now, on the framework, treasury framework, right? It's a design system. I think even in the preamble of the enterprise risk framework, we hear that organizations are not homogeneous, and therefore they're not required to comply to the prescript of the law, but rather to understand the principles and apply the principles. So it's a principle-based approach that we're talking about in risk management. And so as organizations, including ourselves here, we should look at risk management as a guidance into what's best, but we should seek to find what might improve performance, improve service delivery in our own instance. So enterprise-wide risk management is supported by National Treasury. Even the provincial treasuries have got their own, departments and functions that support the, organizations generally in the implementation of risk management. Roles are defined, oversight is set. I think the fact that we have multi-layered structures of governance in our organizations speaks volumes to what we want. So you don't want an organization that just manages risk management in a vacuum. There are governance structures such as your risk management committees, your risk champions that you may have, including your audit and risk committees that we want to have. So those roles, have to be defined in one way or another. And then we've got integration in our planning processes. I think from as a trainer with EMSA, going around talking to different organizations, one of the things we see is a disconnect between the planning process and the risk profiling process, right? They seem to come after the fact in terms of risk profiling, which puts organizations at a disadvantage, because now your plans are not incorporating what you should be doing in resolving some of those risks. And so what we want, in order for us to promote accountability, it is the integrating of risk management in both performance and planning, planning systems and processes. So what we advocate for, essentially, is that the planning process should be infused with the risk management consideration, so that the outcomes of it are risk-informed, outcomes. And of course, the King Code has become a catalyst, of course, in facilitating integration. I think it's something I mentioned earlier. It speaks about, your strategy being, influenced by you understanding your risks, and then your risks being informed by aligning to your strategy, and of course, the same, impacting performance. We know that people generally focus on performance management, right? And I'm talking to all of us, right? People normally focus on performance management. So it would be prudent for us to take the risks and incorporate them in our performance management system, right? Take the mitigation plans that you've come up with in your risk exercise and translate them into key performance indicators, so that we can now officially, using the systems of the organization, start holding people accountable for risk responses. At the moment, we have a disconnect because people are not responding as they should to risk, because they are profiled and kept in a register that is separate from performance. So we need to bring it to where people are. They are focused on performance, bring the risks to where they're performing. And then the other part that King supports and advocates for, it is the integrated thinking, right? Do not consider yourself to be a chief in your own kingdom within your organization. You're not that important. You are as important as everyone else that you are supporting and everyone else that supports you. So we need to understand how we influence other organizations or other teams within our organization, and how they in turn influence us insofar as risk is concerned. Let's break down silos. Let's ensure that we facilitate integration into our day-to-day practices, so that this does not become an extension of what we do, but it becomes integral to what we do. And of course, integrated assurance. The conversation about combined assurance that Hermi did earlier, it speaks to different levels of assurance, and I'm glad that we are still, reflecting on the 5 levels of assurance. The King Code on Corporate Governance presents us with a different approach. It highlights a 5-level, kind of assurance that we can do. The point, however, is that assurance must be integrated in what we do. So managers must be given tools to account and report on issues as and when they happen, good and bad, right? That's why on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, there's management reports that are coming through. What are you doing? As management, you are providing assurance that you are in pursuit of your objectives. You are providing assurance that risks are being managed. Whatever the case may be, you are performing some level of assurance in your area. And so if we subscribe to and we adopt the King Code on Corporate Governance, we will find ourselves integrating assurance even in our normal managerial practices. So this is the summary of what King says about accountability. Right at the top, it's not necessarily from just King, by the way. Right at the top, we've got the accounting officer carrying the primary accountability. So you've got management that also have got a responsibility to fulfill certain functions insofar as managing risks are concerned, because this impacts your decisions that you're making. It impacts your operational performance, and ultimately, of course, it impacts the way in which we pursue strategies for the organization. Not only that, but we have to be supported, right? We need support. We don't know everything. We're not jacks of all trade, such that we know everything that needs doing. And so within our organizations, we may have dedicated specialists, people that know and have the capability of bringing resources to us in order for us to implement now for the implementation of risk and compliance. And so risk and compliance units, for example, become then that function where they do a lot of research. They may bring a new innovative ideas in terms of how we need to do certain things. And your internal auditors are your internal assurance providers. These are your friends, right? I started my journey as an internal auditor way back in 2000, I think, in the year 2000. And one of our struggles in the public sector was we were seen as police. In fact, we were wearing gray suits and we were, threatening to everyone. People would just look at us and say, nah, I don't want the auditors to come my way. And it took us a long time to change that attitude, right? So where we are now, we have internal audit being positioned as a partner for success. Okay, internal audit is positioned as a partner for success. Why do they exist? To give us an opinion, an independent appraisal of the controls that we've developed. So the auditors will look at that policy that you've written and evaluate it for relevance to the organization and effectiveness in managing the risk. And so they fulfill a very critical role in enhancing the risk management practices within our organizations. And of course, we cannot ignore the external assurance, such as assurances that we get from other partners, international credit evaluators such as your Moody's and your ISO, Standards and Poor's, whoever else that might be interested in what we do, or they may have a responsibility to look at us. We need those opinions. We need those reports, as they may, drive us towards a positive outcome, so to speak. Now, as I draw close to finishing, compliance failures are not just rule breaches, but compliance failures are perceived or seen in most instances as rule breaches. In other words, in our organizations, we operate within a set of rules, right? Whether these are from acts of parliament, independent acts, or whether they come from internal policies. We operate within those rules. Now, when we talk about compliance, it is us shading within those lines that is important. The minute we cross those lines, those compliance lines, we cross and we breach certain compliance requirements, and we consider this to be a rule breach, and therefore may lead to much greater, contraventions and much greater negative impacts to our organization. When we look at governance failures, however, right, it's not just about the rules. The rules may be in place, right? But however, there may be some level of poor decision making that happens, right? Where people did not fulfill their fiduciary duties as they should. You did not execute as you should have done, and therefore there's a failure in your area. I think testament to this is once again the various events that are happening around the country, where people are called to account now, not because policies were not in place, but because they failed to follow through, or they failed in doing the right thing when they were called. So integrity was a problem, right? Poor decision making. Now, assurance in itself, and that's why we want to focus on combined assurance. Assurance in itself then helps us to protect value. You see, intrinsic to risk management is the need for us to generate value, protect value, and realize value for our organizations. And so how do we do this? By ensuring that there's compliance to laws and there's fulfillment of our responsibilities in response to risk. I think the conversations that we've had, from the previous speakers, speak to processes of designing and developing or implementing combined assurance. Why does it become necessary? Because it helps us to address complex risks. Risks are so complex, we might not address them from intuition all the time. You need a set of governance, a defined governance. You may need support from other business units, and so in that instance, we need to know who else is looking at this risk and how are they helping us. We exist within a very challenging times where we have limited resources, right? Whenever we talk about risk management, one of the first things that is raised is there's no money. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but there isn't enough money, right? And testament to this is the size of our business units, our risk management functions. Usually, it's one person, a person that has multiple roles or dual roles and so forth, right? Limited resources. What we then need to understand is we need to leverage on other assurance providers within the system, right? So if you can't do enough risk management practice exercises, let us ensure that there's some level of compliance, there's some internal auditing that's taking place, and we get the auditors to come on board, right? Because we have limited resources. And the South African National Treasury guidelines that help implement risk management have also emphasized a lot around oversight. So I think there's structures in place where we have committees, and I think one of the questions I'm going to be asking is, do we have structures and committees in our organization to help the conversation remain alive? Now, oversight helps us to have an independent appraisal of what we are doing as an organization. It's a mirror, it's a reflection of where we are not doing well, right? We might not know whether or not we're doing things okay until someone else comes and takes a look and takes a look at us. Of course, all of this must be coordinated, meaningfully. At the end of the day, what we're talking about here is that from a legislative or a framework perspective, compliance is the basis on which we build our house, right? Compliance becomes the basis of it all, right? And then from compliance, we then, because we don't want to just have blind compliance, we need to understand the risks. What are the risks that these laws are helping us to manage or to navigate? So risk profiling becomes necessary, and from there we can look at our integrated thinking. Are we considering all the issues? Are we doing enough contextualization, right? Your personal analysis and your SWOT analysis when thinking about risk issues, so that there's a proper a consideration in decision making, so that we can realize a combined assurance. Many government organizations right now do not have well-structured combined assurance processes, but they have relationships built already amongst these functions. So we need to see that translating into effective combined assurance within our organizations. So the use of these frameworks has to be a designed governance. It's a realization that we are having designed governance systems, right? We're deliberate about it. We're not just thumb-sucking this. We're deliberate about it. We're considering and benchmarking against, what is out there. We're mapping accountability. People must be held responsible. I think what's important even for us here in this room is that we need to see ourselves being held accountable and responsible by this system or process. One of the questions I ask, when we engage in risk is, do you find value in your risk process? If not, change it, because we need to have meaningful, practices in our organization where we prioritize assurance to the top risks. The question that always comes: to what end do we profile our risks? Hey, man, to the extent that you can indicate which ones are the most critical risks, because risks are not the same. They're not. They will not manifest themselves at the same level. So prioritization of risk becomes a critical input into any designed combined assurance process. And of course, the governance value chain frameworks design the system, risk management populates it, assurance monitors it, decision making proves it. Right? These are the realities of us working in our organizations right now. Right? There's frameworks that design the system. Risk management helps us capture information within the system that has been designed. Assurance, like such as internal auditors, they help us monitor these risks, right? Decision making proves it. Now, the other comment about internal audit, perhaps before I move off this one, is that we only audit what management acknowledges to be well controlled and well managed, right? So it's all the risks that are sitting in the green that should be subjected to internal audit, and not the ones that are red. If your risks are have got massive gaps, what are internal audit going to do there? What are they going to give you assurance on? They may give you assurance in terms of your thinking, perhaps. They may give you some opinions, but in order for internal audit to be effective, they need to come when you are confident as management to say things are working well in my environment, come and check, right? And right there, they will help you see the blind spots and so forth. Well, that's why they exist, to help us see around the corner where we can't see. All right. And yeah, that's it from me. I know it says I must return to the ESA, practical application, because we want to continue with this discussion here on site. Yeah, but once again, colleagues, I do acknowledge and apologize for the technical glitches that we had earlier. However, this conversation around combined assurance, is one that is critical for all of us in the private sector and in the public sector. It's unfortunate that you can't see me, Vanessa. Oh, sorry, Ermi. I thought I had you call us out there. But this is it from me. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Thank you. Thank you, Prof, for that presentation. Are there any questions coming from the room before we can take the questions that we might have online? In the absence of questions from the room, there's a question for the NSG. Acting Principal, I think, because there's an item here on closing remarks, and that has to do with the NSG and IRMSA. This question actually shows that there's a keen interest in this partnership that's being launched and the practice of risk management in the public sector. It says, greetings, colleagues. Will this partnership with IRMSA lead to NSG certificates with credits?
Okay. I think you're muted here.
There's a keen interest there. So I think
that was for us also.
Principal will take, and then also a compliment that has come, I think it's from one of the municipalities.
We wanted to share with us, because the conversation includes us, our relationship to each other. So perhaps
please mute Prof. Bua. I thought tech support has an automatic mute there. It says that I'm an internal auditor in one of the local municipalities. This principle will help us a lot in compiling combined assurance plans. So those are the compliments and questions that we have received. And there's a hand on the screen. Kulsam, let us take that hand on the screen. Okay, thank you. You may go ahead, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, please
Can you
go
hear
ahead.
me? It's Dr. Leroux speaking. We actually have 33 questions on the Q&A section. So if you guys want to go to the Q&A, I've answered all of the questions, all the 33. There was a question from the room that said, why 5 lines of assurance, not only 3, and why do we see the governing body as part of the line of assurance? You design the governance model or the assurance model that work for you. That's my comment regarding that question. So it was a question that was written down from the room. You can have an explicit line of assurance for your governing body, or you can have it just as the oversight body at the top. Productivity, who's part of knowledge leader. Those are the 5 lines of assurance where tone of the organization is actually part of the lines of assurance, which I love, because that's creating risk culture as part of your assurance lines of assurance. So what the minister said earlier, that it's not only the tone at the top, or not only the top responsible for assurance, for proper risk management, for proper compliance, proper internal audit. Everybody in the organization is responsible for that. So I personally, as Dr. Leroux supports the 5 line of assurance where tone of the organization is actually part of that. Why do I support it? Because it means there will be intentional action. People will have risk awareness sessions. People will have planning and design sessions to ensure the combined assurance work for your organization. So that's my answer for that question. The other one, we've got 33 questions, like I said, from the room or from the online audience. If you want those answers, please, people, go and have a look on the link and then go and have a look at those answers. It will give you instruction and guidance in terms of how to design this thing we call combined assurance and how to actually go and implement it. My short story is the following. Yes, simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. Secondly, if you want completeness of your picture, I was a consultant forever, and we always use the 5 W's and the H: who, what, when, where, why, and the other W and the how. Then you can ensure that you've completed the entire story for yourselves. You can provide guidance. Should the chief audit executive be the risk, the assurance champion, they can complete the picture. If it's the chief risk officer, they can complete that picture. My advice to you in short, in normal English, is whoever can get the job done should champion combined assurance. Implementers, people that can design and implement. Hopefully that answers a lot of your questions.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for that. We'll now move. Oh, there's a question there at the back.
Just put it on.
Thank you. Is it still in the morning or afternoon? Oh, still in the morning. Good morning, Minister and everybody else. Maybe I must start with the Minister or his officials. I am not sure currently when coming to the affiliation to professional bodies, who is actually responsible for the payment of those memberships. I'm saying this because I'm a graduate of a master's degree in applied risk management. And for some time, I've been wanting to become a CRM prof because I think that is a level I qualify for. However, because of this, memberships don't really become cheap. We also understand. And they are also on an annual basis. Maybe we should come or maybe come to a point whereby we either get subsidized or somehow, I don't know how engineers and doctors are currently doing at the moment, but maybe that is one of the problems that we are not yet certified. And I think the issue of certification as well, maybe if I now speak to the CEO of IMSA, the issue is that we do not have the necessary mentorship currently in the system. And you know, for one to qualify, we have to complete the logbook. 5 years ago, I tried that and I never succeeded. Because as soon as I placed the logbook before my supervisor, they looked away. They looked away. Because honestly, and I would not want to have a logbook that was just done for compliance, but it must have a meaningful value. Because if I just have somebody who's going to sign it off and agree with me, I mean, without even having to give some inputs to it, I mean, I don't think if it's worth it. Yeah, those are the issues I think that I would like to address so far. Thank you very much.
Okay, there's another question from our colleague here. Please, our panelists, note that question and this one as well.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. I just wanted to find out, there's a number of professional bodies in the area of risk management. I'm not sure how they interact and interface. Who's the bull in the crawl? How do they work? What is the pathway to navigate in this area of risk management from a professional body point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, panelists, to respond to those two questions there. We'll come to you. I don't know who to whom the question was directed, so I think all of them can respond. Yeah.
I think the CE of OMSA can answer all of the questions. She's in the room there. You can just take the mic to her.
Yeah. Okay, maybe let me take the first question that came from the room about who's responsible for paying the professional fees. As you rightly say, even the doctors and the nurses as well, they all belong to professional bodies. At this stage, it is the responsibility of an individual to belong to a professional body and pay the fees. What we're trying to do as the school, by creating these relationships with professional bodies for the public service, is to try and also negotiate a fee structure for the public servants to make it more affordable, to ensure that they get attracted to belonging to the professional bodies. So these are part of the discussions. It's not guaranteed that you'll get a reduced membership price, but we are negotiating with the professional bodies because it's part of our professionalization. As it stands, it is your personal responsibility to belong and pay for those fees. And we also want to be able to, while we promote this, the CEO will respond to the issues of certification, certified requirements. But what we want is to create an environment within your workspace that supports you as you do your work, and to also be able to get those CPD points as well. So where there's challenges where you're not getting the proper support, we would want to understand those and be able to try and intervene in the situation. Because if you need to be supported, those low frames you're talking about, but I'm sure that we can find modernized ways of doing some of that work to then be supported. But we want to unblock those kind of things and support you in your professionalization path. Thanks.
Thank you. I think just then to layer on to what the acting principal has already mentioned is when it comes to maybe starting off the certification questions, the logbook. So unfortunately, that makes up the eye of a needle that, we'll all need to go through in order to be inferred with that designation. And the burden that we are currently experiencing is a ratio of 1:10. So earlier on, I mentioned that of the pool that we've got, the database of risk practitioners across different regions is that only 10% of those are already certified. Now, in considering a mentorship program, you would want to pair a already qualified or certified individual to an aspiring designator or designee. So that in itself presents a challenge because we only have 10% who are effectively carrying the 90. So nonetheless, please, I do encourage you to reach out to us because we do have a mentorship program in place. I'm looking at you. I don't know whether it was you who questioned. Yeah, but we do have a mentorship program in place, particularly candidates that are finding it a little bit difficult to traverse the program. So we will take that into account. Thank you. The other question about certification that will come through from the partnership, particularly being processed by the National School of Government, whether it will have credits. I'm sure that is exactly what we'll be working on jointly, and it should be able to meet those requirements. Did I miss anything? Fees. Yeah. Well, here's my challenge, and I posted to the minister this morning. It might come across as though it's not a lot, to pay for one to pay for the certification fees or membership fees, but in the context of the current financial constraints for individuals, it's a lot of money. It's it's not more than 3,000. Yeah, depending on what category of, it's not more than 3,000. So really, again, we need to see government really, because my challenge, my discourse, minister, is that we're expecting excellence from our people, but we're not prepared to support them, to equip themselves with those excellent practices and skill sets. So that's a dichotomy for me. So yeah.
We will just look at that. But on a lighter note, which is a fact, I'm paying 10,000 every month to my party for being a member of parliament, if you know what I mean. So while we appreciate that concern, but I think I was asking how much, it's about 3,000. I think we must ask ourselves, really, do we mean to say we can't afford that per year? Regardless, but can't we afford that? But sometimes we don't have, we say it's too much because we're not really looking at it that this is 3.5. If you can just go and look at it that is 3.5, we'll realize not much money. Take into account how much money we use every day for other things. But I'm saying we can look at it, but it's not much money, honestly speaking.
Thank you, Minister and colleagues. There's a question again from this side, and I think it is directed to our panelists. Please say to whom you're directing the question to.
Thank you. My question is twofold. It's directed both to the minister as well as the panelist. Let me start first with the minister. Minister, I think it was said here by the panelist that there must be willingness, there must be commitment by the executive, sorry for it. Let me start once more. My question to the minister is this. The panelists have just informed us that there must be commitment, there must be some sort of a willingness from the executive, especially at public sector institutions. However, you find that this becomes a challenge. They don't want to take ownership. They don't want to, I don't want to say muddy their hands, but they always distance themselves. So what I'm asking you, Minister, is how can we put a consequential management if such, things do happen? Because at most, especially at municipality level, there is a challenge whereby you'll find this particular responsibility is only up to the management. But when it comes to the executive, they don't want anything to do about it. Secondly, to the panelists, you spoke a lot of advocacy in terms of educating not only the specialists in terms of risk management, but I do think we are also missing, other stakeholders who are very much important. As much as we have said that other departments or other units in a particular organizations are important. However, we are missing, for example, if I can put it literally so, we are missing people such as your receptionists, such as your securities, because they are the ones that pose a risk to the organization's information. For example, a security officer or a receptionist might show an empathy to someone who wants to print a CV, and then they simply take that particular USB stick and put it into the hardware of the institution. And then we know that there are malicious hackers out there who can take advantage of that. So I'm saying that we also need to extend our training. We should not be selective. That training of risk management should only be done by the executive, should only be done by the management, but it needs to cross a cut. You know, it should be done by everybody so that people, they know what poses a danger or a risk to everything at an organization. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come to you, ma'am. Let Minister yeah, there's a question.
So thank you. I appreciate the concern that you have, but I think the professionalization of public servants or professionalization the public service is one area that will help us to deal with such tendencies, because you will also understand, you make a reference to local government. That is fear that has been working on its own. And one of the endeavor by governments that we should have one public service, which from national provinces and also local municipalities or local government rather being part of the whole ecosystem, not operating on its own. Again, the issue of accountability, we are stressing that and we are advocating that to say no one should be immune and no one should be above accountability. If you listen to what I said on my presentation here, I spoke to a particular element which we don't talk about in the main, the issue of the risk of politics, because that's an area that we need to really pay attention to. Because in some areas where you find that there are challenges in terms of commitment and compliance, that element pops in and we don't pay attention to that. And if those people have that kind of cover, so to say, if I was a lack of a better word, it's because they've got that backup from this kind of leadership. So professionalization therefore cuts across. We are making sure that every person who is in the public space is professional. We instill those ethical values where people take responsibility and make sure that they do everything according to the book. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of comments, no questions really. Getting back to the topic of discussion on combined assurance. Thank you, Professor Leroux, for confirming that the combined assurance model should be flexible and aligned to what your organization really requires. Because on the one slide, I would caution that you put in line 5, the governing body and the AG in the same line. They have very, very different roles and mandates and might be in conflict if you put them in the same line, especially in the public sector, for example. And the other thing that I really enjoyed is, I think it was Yvonne Matibi who said that we must consider how the external global risks, for example, impact us. And what we recommend, what I recommend is that you look at, for example, the World Economic Forum 2026 global risk, or any global risk report, and the RIMSA risk reports when they come out, and identify how each of those risks directly impact your organization, irrespective of what your organization is. But what it allows for the risk professionals in your organization to do is to really dig deep and understand the entire enterprise, the entire organization, from your HR, your IT, your business processes, etc. And what are those impacts to your organization? And you'll be surprised that you'll actually come up with direct impacts, not indirect, direct impacts. And then also, don't leave it there. Try to determine what can we do about it. Now, it's important to control external risks. We can't prevent the US administration from increasing tariffs to South Africa or a pandemic from happening. And the pandemic is an excellent example. When the pandemic happened, South Africa and the rest of Africa were prepared because they had a pandemic response plan. And most other big first world countries, for example, the US, had nothing in place. So they didn't know how to respond, but we did. And people were like trying to grapple, but why is Africa responding better than the first world countries? We didn't anticipate such a pandemic, but just having one in place. So that's why I say you can't prevent a pandemic from happening, but you can mitigate and manage what can I do to lessen the impact of that, whatever the risk is. So I encourage is for organizations to, even in the public sector, to dig deep, look at those top 10 global risks or the top 10 risks from the IRIMSA risk report and say, what do these risks do? How do these risks impact our organization directly? And what can we do to minimize the impacts of these risks? Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe we also have the mic. There was a question around who's the bull in the crawl. I think I missed the question. Yes. As far as I'm concerned, IMSA, the Institute of Risk Management South Africa, is the sole accredited professional body for the risk management industry. There's no other. If there is, maybe bring that knowledge to our attention so we can take it up with SAQA, the authority. What is CISA? Oh, no, it's compliance. That's exactly what it is. And these sister bodies we work with, we complement each other. So KISA, we work with KISA, but they do compliance. They don't do risk management. But what you are likely to find, which also follows through with IIA, because we've got internal auditors here, there will be components of risk management in the work that they do. And equally so, in my work, there's components of audit, there's component of strategy, AI, so on and so forth. So it's really how, each aspect of what we do fully encompasses the mandate of each professional body, and how do we supplement and work with each other in getting that through. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. One question was directed to the panelists, and then after their response, I will take one more question. Over to you. Yes, please go
Can you
ahead,
just
ma'am.
remind us of the question to the panelists, please?
The question was regarding the advocacy, the education, making awareness of risk management.
Oh, I
You
remember.
now? Yes.
I do,
Not
I
working
do,
in
I do.
silos, yeah.
So working in silos, I think part of your risk awareness efforts in your organization should be focused at every single level. So normally when we do training, we do the theoretical principles, but then we apply it to the specific operational environment. So what you mentioned there is a data security and data integrity risk, or the risk of ransomware, cyber risk that comes into your organization. So the best place to start with action is in your CTO or Chief Technology Officer, CIO world, where they actually have to prohibit and prevent people from putting USB sticks into USB ports, where they actually have controls in place to manage information risk in your organization. And that should be focused at every level. So number one, I would suggest risk awareness or risk training sessions for every single staff member at every level in the organization. And number two, looking at your cybersecurity for the organization, for bring your own devices to work, or for allowing people to just put anything in any hole in your computer. So that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you. There's one more question here.
Thank you so much to the NSG for organizing the session. And I must commend them because I think increased training is good. I have a question and maybe a comment to the panelists to consider, and maybe to the CEO as well of IRMSA. I think as a government, I wanted to ask the question, increased training happens. We've got skills audits that are being done. We are advocating for higher level of meritocracy, if I can put it like that, through the professionalization framework. The public service has standards insofar as each level, the qualifications that are required, the NQF levels, even the number of years in terms of experience. The problem is not the inputs, it's the outcomes, it's the results. Why are we not able to link more training to better outcomes? So you'll find that more people are being trained, more people have certification as a risk professionals or risk experts. Why is that not able to determine or link us to better results in terms of public performance? That's the first. I think the second is every single department is mandated to have risk committees. Most SOEs, they have audit and risk or ARC committees. Even NSG would have risk committees from a governance perspective. This is a risk governance workshop for effective risk workshop. I'd love to hear your views on how we move from a compliance culture. All of these risk committees look at the APPs, but there's little impact. All of these risk committees look at the performance of the overall department, but you see service delivery strikes and riots. Where is the link to these risk committees, risk governance structures? Why are they not able to say there's a huge risk here because you're not able to meet your outcomes and see impact? How come we're happy with saying 100% audit, 100% clean audit, but no performance on the ground, and the risk processes and systems are not integrated or linked to the actual impact on service delivery? And so we create these training, we create these committees, we have these processes, but there's very little impact on the ground. And I think the third question maybe is on risk processes. Why does the risk processes that we have, or how can we improve, rather, let me make it a problem statement. Minister always says that before 94, we had good public servants. If you were to hear him speak in many platforms, he always emphasizes that we had good teachers, we had people that were committed nurses. Before these policies, framework, and all the professionalization, though he supports professionalization, why is it that our current KPIs and outcomes are unable to, from a risk perspective, link to better performance? How is that articulated in this risk process? And so I'm just interested to hear from this risk governance process. There's no department that doesn't have a committee of risk and audit. Everyone has risk unit, if I can put it like that. But there's still no performance or poor service delivery outcomes. And I think there's a serious disjunction problem here because we're training people more, we're coming out with more analytical processes and frameworks, but the impact and outcomes is simply not there. Thank you.
Can I take that question? Because I'm so passionate about this. I think everything is over-engineered and simplicity is not introduced. So number one, in terms of the training, we personally, all three of us, Vanessa, myself, and Mututuzeli, do practical exercises. We force all staff members, irrespective of their level in the organization, to go through a risk assessment, have the proper conversations, and link it back to their objectives. How are you going to have that conversation? So all of them in their training get the theoretical outline, but they also get to practice. The previous 2 days, I was in a government institution where we did risk champion training, for example. Everyone there, from the most junior staff member to the most senior staff member, had an opportunity to tell their risk story. So that's what we're missing. People don't know how to tell their risk story in a practical way. This is what I need to accomplish. These are the problems that I experience. That links to your second question. Why do we fail in our risk committees? We fail because we don't have the right conversations. We've got people, chairpersons, or sitting in those risk committees that do not drive the conversation in the right direction. It's all about compliance. We've got performance indicators, tick, 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 tick. But we don't challenge. We don't challenge. The first thing, and I'm not here to blow my trumpet, I do when I take over a risk committee is to change to a dashboard reporting. What is your highest risk in your department? You, Mr. DG, you come and give feedback to us. You take the responsibility. What is your highest risk? What are your struggles? And what decisions do we need to make? Those are the types of conversations that you should have in your risk committees. Focus your attention and your conversation so that it results in a decision. It's because people don't do that. It's just we're reporting back. We're reporting back on the last quarter. No, you're not. You're asking for this committee to actually make a decision or a recommendation to the next committee. So we must have robust discussion, not fights, robust discussions that will inform decision making. And once people, the chairperson of those committees, take that responsibility, you will see results. Because now suddenly people will not come with common excuses. Oh, we don't have capacity, we don't have budget, we don't have this, we don't have that. They will literally come with, we don't have it, but we propose the following solution. And then you will see results on the ground. So, two things. One, only have people go in training where they actually go into a simulated environment where they get to practice their risk story. Secondly, with regards to risk committees, get proper chair people of your risk committees that will drive decision making. If they don't drive decision making, people are just going to tick, tick, tick until the cows come home. It's not a tick box exercise. There must be robust discussion, decisions made at the end of the day, and not only blindly following certain processes. And your third point was about risk management processes. Vanessa, maybe you can take that one because I was so excited about the risk committee answer. I forgot what the third point was.
No, well, you'll have to remind me of the third point, but I want to just add to your second point that the accountability is so important. And speaking back to training, speaking back to committees, we have this lack of accountability. So we're ticking the boxes, and I've answered a couple of questions in the question box as well, that we're so often stuck in a tactical zone that we will go on training, but we come back and we get back into our operations and we lose what should have actually have improved. Our risk committees everyone's just so rushed. We don't end up getting into the sort of strategic mode and really improving and getting things done. We tick the box, we make sure internal audit is satisfied, and our leadership is satisfied, we do our reports. Does anybody read the reports? Is it actually enabling decision making? And like you said, it's often too complex that we think that these 85-page risk management frameworks are going to solve all of our problems, but our people are not using them, and it's not adding value at all in our organization in terms of decision making. So we really need to take that step back and just see, we could train 60 risk champions in our organization, but as you said, if we don't have the follow-on and the practical experience and exposure and the forums and the discussions, and we're just going to lose it. I mean, often in our training that we deliver, you don't actually know if anyone's even registered what you've said in the time that you've spent with them. So it's very big cultural leadership, accountability issues, but capacity is often one of our biggest constraints to that as well.
So I just want to follow on what we just said. The bottom line is simplify people. Why are you sitting in that committee? You're sitting there because you want to affect change. You want to improve governance in your organization. You want to improve government, public sector. Everybody is fat with training. They don't implement and they don't execute. So unless you've got strong leadership in your risk committee boardrooms, you are just going to tick box, tick box, tick box, look at all the 85 pages of reporting instead of having focused discussions that must result in decision making. I've seen it in my own risk committees that I've chaired. It can change, but it needs strong leadership that do not take any nonsense from any member in those risk committees. That is bottom line. B, drive simplicity. Drive simplicity. What do you see? What do you want to see at the end of the day? You want to see implemented decisions. Well, I feel very strongly about this because I think many people's lives are wasted. If you think hands and feet, you will realize that you can simplify many things in terms of risk management, and it will be a decision-making tool and not an administrative burden. So change must come from the front. Thank you.
And
I
to
feel
layer
better
on,
now.
thank you, Dr. Hemi. To layer on a big disclaimer there, we cannot respond on behalf of many other training service providers who, of course, are in most cases the winning bidders to render these trainings for government. So I think the question should be in that, what is the quality that goes through procuring for training service providers? And in saying so, I can only speak for myself. And should there be a single person in public sector who would have gone through AMSA's training and is not delivering, report that person to me. And by the way, which brings in another aspect, which talks to certification. There's a big, I think, for lack of a better word, strategy that we drive through certification. And that is not only to have people who are certified to be kept abreast and well developed in terms of the industry expectations. It is because these people, once they get certified, they are subjected to the professional code of ethics. Now that's very key because that code of ethics will have you adhere to its requirement. Firstly, is continuing that professional development, taking up training as and when there's a new development, right? Ensuring that you stick to the code of ethics. So without that, it becomes difficult for people to really come through as excellent, as professional as we so expect of them to be. So that is one tool that I think without it, it's going to be difficult to monitor, to supervise and man our practitioners on the ground. We've got a partnership with the Gauteng Ethics Council, GIAC agency. Yeah. And the arrangement between us professional bodies with the Premier of Gauteng, I think Honorable Makura, yeah, is that they want to subject to us as professional bodies to say, should they find practitioners who are working for government, and in this instance, Gauteng government, who would not have upheld their professional code of conduct, what do we do about those people as professional bodies? So there should be collaboration between us professional bodies and government, because in as much as government would have leeway in terms of disciplinary processes, we also have a part to play as professional bodies. So how do we ensure that streamlining between professional bodies and public sector? And again, on training, how many trainings do we support that does not fill the gap? There's lots of trainings that are supported. What gap is it filling? And I think that's a crucial question that we need to think about as we send people through to training. If it doesn't fill the gap, it's not going to add any value. I think, yeah. Again, on risk committees, audit committees, Actually, one of their roles and the role of the authority, the accounting authority in this respect, is that they need to evaluate performance of these structures, governance structures. So the accounting authority needs to sit and evaluate, is the audit committee doing its work? Because if its work, it's not functional, it's not effective, it's not going to drive the outcome that you're speaking of. So we need to take them through, subject them through those processes. And if they are not working, they are not working. Unfortunately, we'll need to apply consequence management.
Maybe to add to what has been raised, when we look at the issues of training, part of the problem, I think Minister talked to it earlier on around the issue of culture. It's the issue of you are able to send people to different programs and they do that, but they come back to an environment that does not have a culture that is ethical, that is supportive. So that becomes a problem. And at times, as well, looking at the risk champions or risk managers within the departments, we need to look at what kind of powers do they have? At what levels are they able to influence what happens within the organization, or they're put in a place where they will not be listened to because of the level they're at? Another thing that we've seen as we also engage with the boards as well as a board of entities and senior management training is the issue that when you look at people getting clean audits, they're focusing on the financial issues, making sure that the compliance issues are dealt with. They're not focusing on the core work of the departments. And hence, AGS focusing now a lot on the issues of performance management and giving findings around that, because you can have a clean audit without having done much. If your finances are okay, you've got all the compliance happening, you'll have a clean audit, but you would not have impacted on the citizens. So there is a drive to make sure that there's focus on the issue of performance within public service, and followed up, looking at what did you put in your APP? Did you do what you had set out to do? But I think what's key is having those structures, those governance structures, your audit committees, your risk committees, looking at the core business of the organization and not only focusing on the issues of finance as part of the work, because they are working for the whole organization, not only the finance, to make sure that the accountability on the finance issues. We need to be able to deliver on the services that our people are looking for. But we are focusing, hence we structure our partnership with people that can bring the right kind of training within government to support the work that we do as the NSG, to make sure that we change the focus, we change the performance within government. Yes, and we want to support, hence the partnership with professional bodies. They need to be held responsible. When we belong to a professional body, the ethics that are governing you within the professional body should also come into play. And if you are not living up to that, there should be disciplinary measures taken towards that member that is not living up to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the absence of further questions, I would like to call on the CEO and the acting principal to give closing remarks. But before I do that, I would like to check with Minister if he has any last remarks to make. Minister doesn't have any last remarks to make, so CEO followed by acting principal to give closing remarks. Or you're gonna give the remarks while you're there. It's okay.
Thank you. I think much has been said already in the initial statements that we shared with everyone. But at this moment, really to just, turn on to everyone who's here and extend our deepest appreciation for the opportunity, looking at the National School of Government, looking at the Honorable Minister PCETA. This is such an enormous collaboration that we are crafting, and I'm hopeful that a lot will get to come through as tangible outcomes out of this partnership. Like I mentioned, this is a launch of a much more focused series of trainings and skills development programs that to ensue, and that is going to be honing onto different practitioners. If you are in internal audit, we'll be looking into risk management in relation to that particular role, and we'll be looking into compliance risk, we'll be looking into performance risk, so on and so forth. So much more formal training that will carry credits will be communicated at a later stage. We're looking at the three of us here. We are content contributors, in industry representatives, and NSG of course carries a bigger mandate here. And we've got PCETA who will be supporting this program through funding. So it is really exciting, and we look forward to rolling it out. So be on the lookout for further communication. Whilst I'm at it, I'd like to invite everyone, as we are seated now, we do provide access to a knowledge hub where we center all different frameworks, guidelines, practice notes, articles around the themes of strategy, risk, and resilience, because people do understand the theory part, but what people are struggling with is the practical side of things. How do I actually implement on these? So such, practice notes and toolkits are housed within the Tinker Library that you'll find on the AMSA website. So I do encourage you to please go there. A lot of things you'll still, gain access to free of charge. So please do make use of those. And we constantly do issue such journals, to continue the empowerment path from a risk management point of view. And many other webinars that we are offering free of charge to any person, any level of government. We recently had the King 5 webinar where we had the chairperson of the King Committee herself presenting on King 5. So it is these partnerships that we bring together through other professional bodies that truly integrate the ethos of our role as professional bodies, with public sector in mind, with users in mind, and we do also cater for private sector. Should not come across as though I'm leaning towards public sector alone. So I encourage you to please take part onto these offerings that we put forward. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues, for joining us today. We're so grateful that you made the time, especially those that are in the room, as well as those online. We know we had over 700 people joining the webinar today. This is a start. As we said, this is a start of this relationship. There's more programs that will come that will be risk-based. As CEO has already alluded to that, we will be communicating that information soon, and we will be calling up participation into these programs. We remind everyone that risk management is not only for the risk managers within the departments, it's for everyone that is working within government. We all have a responsibility. So we'll have programs for the practitioners, and we'll have programs for those that are in management that needs to be aware of these programs. We want to thank the Honorable Minister Shenge. We're so grateful that you made the time to come and support this launch today, participate in these discussions. Thank you so much, colleagues. May you have a good day further. Thanks.
Thank you, Acting Principal. You said everything. I'm not supposed to speak after you. The meeting is urgent. Thank you. And thanks to our panelists.
Thank you.
Yeah, they'll sit outside. Okay. Rebecca. Picture.
PSTF is back. The Public Sector Trainers Forum has been at the forefront of empowering South Africa's public sector since
Colleagues, there's lunch outside. Please help yourselves.
Policy and governance. The PSTF has supported public sector HR professionals for over 20 years. The 23rd annual PSTF conference held in 2023 attracted about 685 delegates within the public sector HR profession. In 2026, we returned with a powerful new focus, building public sector capacity for economic growth, digital transformation, and ethical governance. The National School of Government invites you to join in this event designed for HRD practitioners, trainers, policy analysts, and e-government specialists. The PSTF conference is your platform to network, learn, and advance in public sector innovation. Register today and be part of this transformative experience. Contact PSTF at pstf@nsg.gov.za or scan the QR code to secure your spot. Don't miss out.